What is the highest round reached without opening a single door on every Call of Duty Zombies map? For a game built around exploration and building up your arsenal, this is playing zombies at its most bare bones. But you may be blown away by just how resourceful some players can be. One of the things I love about zombies is how many different sub-communities there are who love playing the game differently. High rounders, Easter egg speedrunners, round speedrunners, and challenge players like No Power, No Perks, or First Room. That last one is one of the smaller but most dedicated communities, because their approach to the game is no joke. Have you ever had that one player in your game who racks up all the points but just won't open the first door for everyone? You probably start downing pretty quick the longer they clutch onto their points. That's because you were never really meant to stay in the first room past round 5 or 6. Certainly not round 10, 15, 20 plus. But what makes this challenge so fun and consistent is that Treyarch developed a formula from the very beginning that still applies to almost every map. The first room has 2 wall guns, usually a rifle and a shotgun, 4 boardable windows, and quick revive for those 3 reses in solo. But of course, most first rooms are small to try to force you out, and the zombies still spawn with more and more health the higher you go. With no panic weapon to rely on, and not even any perks, you're going to be forced to depend on how well you can guide them out of those 4 windows and hoard them up, then slowly pick them off with your weak gun. As such, the first room challenge is one of the most mechanically impressive ways to play zombies in existence. It's move or die, and that can make it insanely fun. So let's see what players do to take on the first room of every map. I'm going to start, as usual, at the beginning, with World at War, although here we already have an exception to the rule. Nocturne Toten, the first zombies map ever, has a very unconventional way to play the first room. See, the first 3 World at War maps only have 24 zombies maximum per round. However, the zombies will still scale in health, and the only weapons in here are the M1 Carbine and Kar 98K, both of which do very little damage. As you get higher in rounds, these guns will take exponentially longer to kill. However, the early COD games have a feature where zombies will bleed out after a certain amount of time. On World at War, these bleedouts actually count as kills that will progress the round. So, on this first room, past round 50 or so, when it starts taking hundreds of bullets to kill a zombie, you can literally just run around the room and the zombies will slowly die over time behind you. This is how the world record holder, Mullant, managed to get to round 361 on Noct without opening a single door, by spending almost 50 hours running the zombies around and letting them get tired. However, doing this efficiently is a little more complicated than you might think. The trigger for the zombie bleeding out is that it must be standing in the same place it was standing in 30 seconds ago. This is a mechanic meant to remove stuck zombies, but it works anywhere on the map, even if the zombie is moving. This meant that Mullant had to time his route around the first room well enough that he was on a consistent 30-second cycle to bleed the zombies out in as few tries as possible. The other problem is that the 30-second timer starts for each zombie when that zombie spawns, so every zombie is on a slightly different timer. The nice trade-off is that World at War also has insta-kill rounds, when the zombie's health overflows and resets to round 1 health, so on about every other round past 163, Mullant could shoot the zombies or grenade them and kill them much faster, although he still let them into the map to get power-up drops like nukes and insta-kills for the next round. The physical hitboxes of World at War zombies are extremely clunky, making it so if you get close to them, you'll stick to them and basically be doomed to die, so Mullant played it safe by staying far away. But the game finally ended when Mullant was taking his zombies for a walk, and they crept up a little closer behind him than he expected, so when he turned around to check on them, yeah, that happened. Verrückt is actually split into 2 first rooms, so they are counted basically as 2 separate maps. We'll start with the Juggernog side, where the world record is 40 by Mr. Pseudo Woodo. On this map, the bleed out strategy is not used, at least not in the same way. For one, it's hard to even get to a high enough round where the bleed out strategy would be faster than killing with a gun. For another, Verrückt has the lovely addition of super sprinters, some of the only zombies in any of the games that are faster than you are. This means it's much tougher to specifically time your route around the room to coincide with the 30-second timer. Instead, Pseudo would hoard them up and then sprint back and forth across the room, shooting the zombies before they caught up to him. I'm going to be talking a lot about hoarding up in this video, and when I say that, I'm referring to the very beginning of each round, when the player takes the first 24 zombies that can be on the map at a time, the horde, and manipulates them in a way where they can get them all in a group, usually by boarding certain windows to make different spawns come in at different times. After that, the player will usually slowly kill the zombies with the wall gun in the first room, or grenades on early rounds. To hoard up, Pseudo boarded the window in what's referred to as the dentist room, but no others. He stalled the zombies by Jug, then walked past Dentist as those zombies came in. But there's something critical to note about World at War Verrückt specifically. This map actually has a bug where if no barriers are put on a window, only 3 zombies can come out of that window at a time. The rest of the zombies at that window will just queue up in a patient line and wait for one of the 3 zombies that came in through that window to be killed, before another will take its place. However, you can also just use the bleed out mechanic on these waiting zombies, because unless they get pushed around by other zombies, they're standing still, and therefore hit the 30-second bleed out timer every time. So Pseudo never had a full horde in the room, only about half. Because there were still only 24 zombies per round, it never took more than a few minutes to finish a round. But, like Nacht, one arm wrestle with the zombies and it would be over. That's what happened on the round 40 horde up, where Pseudo Wunder got double slapped, ending his run after 2 hours. On the quick revive side first room, the record is 37, also by Pseudo Wunder. On quick side, really only the middle room is usable for training, although Pseudo would often retreat into the morgue room for extra space. Very few zombies will come from the morgue window, as there are about 10 spawns in the courtyard and only 1 outside that window, giving the zombies a less than 10% chance to spawn there. Furthermore, Pseudo used the queuing trick to only have about 9 zombies inside the room at a time, giving him much less chance to get stuck to them, and the rest he would bleed out in the windows. The downside is that there's no solo quick revive on this game, so once again, one mistake and he'd be in the morgue. Sadly, he actually got murked by the first 2 zombies that came into the room on 37. Verrückt goes a bit deeper on the Black Ops 1 version, so I'll get into it more when we get to that. Shino Numa's record is 168 by Pseudo Wunder, returning once again to the bleed out strategy. Pseudo would hoard up by boarding these 2 windows and waiting for the zombies from the other 2 windows to come over, then running across the room to let the zombies from the boarded windows out. Until the late 40s, he'd just shoot them with the Gewehr rifle, but after that they were taking too long to kill. He just started running a very specific square around this area to bleed them out. This was a pretty efficient process, all things considered, as he got to 168 in just over 11 hours. Sadly, he did not reach insta-kill rounds, because on World at War, zombie health does not increase on dog rounds, meaning on maps with dogs, instas don't start until about 200. In first rooms, dogs can be vicious, since you have no jug and you're stuck in a tiny room. However, only 2 will spawn at a time, and their attack animation when you're close to them is very long. You can abuse their animation by continually moving around the dog, and shooting or knifing them to never get hit. Dog's health will not increase after the 4th dog round, so they never take more than a few bullets, but Pseudo would end up dying on a dog round when he got stuck on the dog while trying to get away. Derice is the only map on World at War with the scaling number of zombies per round, not just 24. However, only 24 zombies can spawn at a time, so after the initial horde up, you have to deal with respawners, new zombies that spawn once a zombie dies and its slot is freed up. The record here is 46 by Mr. Pseudo Wunder once again. For the horde up, Pseudo boarded these 2 windows and waited for the zombies to come in, then ran up the stairs toward the door, jumping off and circling around to horde up in this big space at the back. While killing, he'd run up both sets of stairs to stall the zombies in drop down and climb up animations. This way, he could also keep an eagle eye out for respawners. The good part is that as the zombies get stronger, you will only be able to pick off zombies very slowly one by one, so you won't have to deal with many respawners at a time. This meant that Pseudo could pretty pretty much continue the same route over and over throughout the round, except when he had to rebuy ammo for the Gewehr, in which case he had to mix in a cutback in this skinny area where the wall buy is. Dogs aren't too much trouble here, as on this map you can actually glitch one of them out on the telepad platform and work on killing one at a time. Pseudo ended up dying when he chanced a cutback when the horde spread and didn't make the maneuver. With Black Ops 1, we see the true crucible that a first room can turn into, and there's no better example of the sheer magnitude of some of these games than the record on Kino der Toten's first room, round 60 by Tester XVI. Kino's first room is one of the most open first rooms in Zombies, with a wide route around the entire room, a spacious lower floor, and long staircases that can be used for jumping over zombies, making it generally pretty easy. The difficulty comes in how slow it becomes. As you might guess, the unpack-a-punched M14 is not designed to combat zombies on round 30, 40, 50 plus. As such, it takes more and more shots to kill a single zombie on these rounds, so the round times slow down exponentially as you continue. The M14 does 315 damage per headshot, but the zombies gain about 10% more max health per round. This means on round 50, it will take 150 headshots with the M14 to kill one single zombie, and there are 249 zombies on round 50. On round 60, it will take almost 400 headshots, and there are almost 350 zombies in the round. Luckily, you can collat and damage multiple zombies at a time, but since the horde shifts around a lot, you're only damaging a handful of zombies at once. It took Tester almost 50 hours of gameplay to reach round 60, with his last zombie round, 58, taking over 7 hours alone to complete. This is why insta-kills and nukes are so massive on first rooms. Despite having to turn the horde around several times and having a number of close calls with lone respawning zombies, he did not take a single down in this game. For dog rounds, since they act the same as World at War dog rounds, Tester would buy the Olympia and let loose into them since it has higher damage per shot. He amassed over 6.6 million points over the course of the game, not including the hundreds of times he bought ammo off the wall. The game finally ended 3.5 hours into round 60 when Tester's PC froze overnight. 5 has a much tougher first room, with way tighter walkways. Here we can really see what mechanical skill can go into a first room record, as shown to us by Verishin, who achieved the world record of round 47. 5 is an interesting first room, as it's one of the very few where you can actually choose what windows the zombies come out of. There are 6 windows in here, but only 4 are active, and it will pick randomly at the start of each game. Verishin restarted until he had 3 in the conference room active, excluding the one by the M14 wall buy, and 1 at the far end of the hallway. This way, for the initial horde up, he could simply stall the 2 windows closest to him with boards, and wait until the zombies from the far windows reached him, then pull them all around to the M14 corner, where no zombies would come from. Then he would simply loop them around the entire area, headshotting with the M14. Black Ops 1 has a feature where if you buy ammo off the wall, it will refill your entire clip, so he could actually spam buy ammo for the M14 to shoot longer while standing there, which was why his points in this game were so low. Another new introduction on this map are death machine drops, which give you a temporary minigun. These are a feature on 5, Ascension, Call of the Dead, and Moon. They seem good on paper, but Black Ops 1 death machines are quite weak themselves, not doing much more damage than a regular pack-a-punched SMG. And since you can't sprint with them or switch away from them, past 30 they are mostly detrimental, or only good for slowly killing a horde. However, they only appear after you buy quick revive for the first time. Verishin survived almost 13 hours in this game, using up all his quick revives from getting stuck, but his end came when he mistook a nuke for an insta-kill and took a death machine alongside it, messing up his horde rhythm, and when he tried to turn some late spawners around, he only ran into some more and died. Next up, we have the longest solo first room record on Black Ops 1, on none other than the most wide open first room, Ascension. In late 2023, Zato achieved round 62 in in a game that lasted almost as many hours as rounds. Here I should talk about why Zato used a specific route around the first room to prevent bleedouts. These work mostly the same as they do on World at War, although the one key difference is that zombies that bleed out do not count as kills for the round on this game. They just respawn as new zombies. This is bad because it means that if it's round 50 and you've put 100 headshots into a zombie, taking its health down to 1/3, and that zombie bleeds out for this reason, those 100 shots were all for nothing, and it becomes a huge time sink. Luckily, Zato was able to find a route around the room where the zombies were never where they were standing 30 seconds before, and prevented 99% of bleedouts while he was using this strategy. So-called no-bleed routes were originally found by Verishin way back in 2017, but have grown steadily more optimized since then. The other interesting thing about Ascension's first room is the centrifuge. It will turn on randomly during the round, and is especially helpful in higher rounds to kill zombies instantly. However, the randomness of the centrifuge goes deeper than you might expect. Every time it turns on, it has a 60% chance to turn on again, a 30% chance to stop spinning for the rest of the round, but also a 10% chance to not only turn off for the rest of the round, but turn off for the entire next round as well. Zato averaged about 3 or 4 spins per round after round 50, with his most spins being 7 on round 57 and his least spins being 0 on round 53. Another thing that slowed him down after 50 was buying quick revive, as that added death machines to the drop cycle, which lessened his chance of getting insta-kills or nukes, which are much faster at killing. Zato's longest single round was 61, which took 8.5 hours, and by the end of the game he had over 8.8 million points. Unfortunately, the first door costs 9 million points. Sadly, as he was paused on 62, he ended up getting a DirectX error. However, he noted that it was very unlikely that he would have finished round 62 before a reset. It's worth noting that Ascension is the only map in COD Zombies where there are also games in both solo and co-op that have reached reset. The reset on a map in high round terminology is when the map's entity counter overflows and the map restarts itself. On Ascension, this takes about 70 hours of gameplay. The first person to hit this without opening a door was French player Fanchu29KK way back in 2016, resetting on round 59. He used a similar, albeit outdated version of Zato's strategy with more bleedouts and less headshot accuracy. The other game is actually the 2-player record of 55 by Tonestone and Zio. The horde up in co-op is about the same, although at least you can have 2 sets of M14s shooting at the horde, and one person stands right next to the M14 wall buy for constant shooting. The hard part was that this was before the days of leaving and rejoining with the Black Ops 1 client Plutonium, so the team had to take in-game sleepers with the last zombie of a round and budget their time to maximize their rounds before reset. I think the most impressive thing about this game is actually when disaster struck on round 52. At the very beginning of the round, Tonestone downed, and Zio was struggling to revive him. First, the horde was too close, then they split around the centrifuge, then they pushed Tone just out of Zio's revive range. Tone ended up bleeding out. This was extremely bad, as now the round would be much slower with only Zio shooting, yet it would still have the zombie count of co-op. And even worse, Zio couldn't pause the game even though Tone was dead. Zio ended up having to play an 11-hour round with not a single food break, bathroom break, or touching grass break. To make matters even worse, Zio had terrible connection as the host player, Tone, was in the US and Zio was in Poland. Yet he still managed to complete the round and was very happy when Tonestone came back to hold the zombies. Unfortunately, this cost them 2 if not 3 rounds off the record, and they reset on 55, making this the lowest round anyone has ever reset on. But this was over 4 years ago, and it hasn't been beaten since. Next up, we have Call of the Dead, which is the highest first room record on Black Ops 1 at 72 by someone named P. Gargler. I can't do these names sometimes, guys, I really can't. The thing is, this first room also comes with a lot of helpful factors that speed up the game a ton. First of all, you can get all the perks in the first room by killing George over and over. The downside is that you have to kill him with only the M14, which takes about 20 minutes of continuous shooting for each perk you you want. Mr. Gargler killed him until he got the most important perk for his strategy, PhD Flopper. PhD deals between 1000 and 5000 damage for every flop, depending on how close to the zombies you are, although on 60+, this still means it could take well over 100 flops to kill a single zombie. Another thing that gave him a significant advantage in this game was setting graphic content to reduced. This way, the game will not make crawlers when you use explosives like PhD. This is very helpful because crawlers are much slower than normal zombies and can mess up the hoarding a lot, especially if some of the horde is crawlers and some regular zombies. He also actually avoided getting quick revive as he very much did not want regular death machines. He wanted more max ammos. Why is that? Well, the other advantage on this map is that death machines that drop from George are Wunder Wafts, which are obviously infinite damage and last until you run out of ammo, although they only kill 10 zombies at a time. However, the nice thing is that they do refill with max ammos. P. Gargler would hold the waft for almost the entire game, flopping when it was low on ammo and dumping it whenever George came back every other round, then killing George and getting a new one. Depending on whether it was a George round or not, his rounds only took an hour or two. But unfortunately, 42 hours in, he got tickled by the zombies in a mid-air flop, and when he tried to stand up again, they punched him back down. Shangri-La's world record is 60 by JZ115. This is the only other first room on Black Ops 1 where you can get all the perks, this time from the monkeys taking max ammos, which adds a perk drop for several frames into the rotation. This room is much tighter than Call of the Dead, but there's one consistent area of elevation change that you can use to activate PhD Flopper, the stairs to the spawn right behind Quick Revive. To hoard up, JZ would board the two windows on the right side of the room, let the opposite side zombies out, then stall them toward the front of the room while the right side zombies came out. To kill, he'd run around to the back of the room, flop once off the staircase, accentuate it with a few shots of the M14, run past Quick Revive, and do it all again. There are two mini-boss zombies who will spawn in here, Screechers and Napalm zombies. First of all, them spawning can be an obstacle in itself, as they spawn directly inside the room during the round, and can block your way if you get unlucky. Screechers are annoying because they are faster than normal zombies and can obstruct your vision, and they still have the same health as the zombies of the round. While a Screecher was on the map, JZ just had to be quicker around the loop and couldn't maximize his flops as much. The Napalm zombie is much slower and can actually be a great help. When he explodes, he douses the area in fire, which can be used to insta-kill quite a few zombies and speed up the round if he dies in a strategic spot. The game took almost 19 hours to 60 before it went downhill. Downing even once is basically a death sentence since you'll lose PhD, and it takes more than twice as long to complete a round by just shooting. Unfortunately, JZ's zombies would get stuck in a group at the back, and he tried to cut back but had no room. After taking the down, he just suicided. Next up is another very unconventional first room, but for a different reason. The record on Moon is a tie actually, 44 by Zombie Legend Germany and Neo Telos. Moon's first room is considered to be the actual first room on the moon, not No Man's Land, as that's a separate challenge. However, it has some of the same problems as No Man's Land, as the main issue here is that there are no wall buys. Those are in the second room. Luckily, No Man's Land has Pack-a-Punch and Juggernog which you can use, but you have to be extremely conserving with your ammo. Add on to that the fact that there's low gravity in here without power, so the zombies will float all over the room and not hoard up nicely, making it much harder to maximize your shots. Not only that, you have to deal with a boss zombie, that being the astronaut. He's not too intrusive and can actually help blow up the zombies when he dies, but he has 4 times the zombies' health, so he can take a while to become helpful. Toward the end of the game, if you're really desperate, it can be good to intentionally down yourself with Quick Revive to get 12 extra Sally's shots while you're down, to help you force a max ammo, but it's not always lucrative. In Zombie Legends game in 2022, he used up all his Quick Revives with no maxes and ended up suiciding. In Neo Telos' game in 2025, he actually got a max on 44 with his 3rd revive, and had plenty of ammo left to finish the round. But unfortunately, without Jug or Quick Revive at that point, he was much more vulnerable. He tried last minute to clear some straggler zombies out of his way, but he damaged himself with his own shot and then got hit from behind, dying on 44. For Nacht der Untoten, I'm going to introduce a new rule for the video, since it's the first map where the co-op record is higher than the solo record. On any map where this is the case, I'll mention both the co-op record and the solo record. A lot of times co-op can be easier on first rooms, especially on maps where you don't have quick revive in there and can't take a single down in solo, like this one. The strategies also vary more, as in co-op you usually want to have one person hoard up half the zombies on one side of the room, one on the other side, and combine, or merge as the terminology goes. This is where one player, usually the blue player on Black Ops 1, as the host will attract the zombies more, will take his horde toward the other player as that player approaches, then run ahead of him, effectively giving his zombies to that player and making it so the blue player can stand still and shoot. This is exactly what players Mad Squawker and Wad did in their world record of 50, the highest round in the Nacht first room. For their initial horde up, Squawker would pull the zombies on the help door side, and Wad would pull the zombies on the mule kick side, and then once they were settled, Wad would give his zombies to Squawker to run around on the help door side. For the rest of the game, they'd lay into the horde with M1 carbines and pull any respawning zombies into the horde. You'll notice in many of these games that they keep all the windows boarded at all times, and this is just to give them a bit more heads up as to what direction a respawner is going to come from, and also because pros keep their windows boarded. With two shooters, their damage was pretty steady, and round 49 only took them about 2.5 hours. Well, I mean, that singular round only took about that long. They ended up quitting on 50 to lock in their achievement. The solo world record on Nacht is 44 by Zato. On solo, the horde up is a lot sketchier, as you basically need to wrap all the zombies around the pillars on the help door side over and over until you have them all, and it's one of the longest horde ups on this game since they spawn so far away. You almost never want to go to mule kick side unless you're forced to, which can happen, so Zato had a few moments where he had to clutch up, and he did. He only ended up dying to a zombie that spread out from the horde and got right in his way, finally ending his run. Next up we have... wait, what's that sound? Oh, it's the hard map alarm. Yep, we're on to one of the designated most impressive first rooms to have a record on. A first room that's incredibly tight and truly tests the limit of your first room horde up skills. Black Ops 1 Verrückt. Both the Jug side and Quick Revive side are designated hard maps. I'll start with Jug side, which is a 4-room extravaganza. Dentist room, the grenade room, the square room, and Jug room. Although of course you can't buy Jug because the power's not on. The record on co-op is again higher than solo, that being round 55 by Zagosoft and Wad. I'll just let you watch some of the clutches and horde up route from this game to immerse you in the magic of Jug side. Jugside's biggest strength is this grenade wallbye right here. Grenades do between 150 and 400 damage each, so on average you're doing about as much as an M14 headshot, but they also hit way more zombies at a time and you can be very loose with your aim. As such, the idea on co-op is that one player hordes up and runs the zombies around through the 3 main rooms, keeping the windows boarded for respawners, and the other just spams grenades at the horde and blows them to smithereens. Guns are then used to finish off crawlers and thin the horde. Unlike World at War, the whole horde can come in this room on this version, so it's a lot tighter. Like Ascension, WAD took a very specific route through the map to avoid bleedouts. Bleedouts are even worse on this map than Ascension, because then the zombies will be damaged at different rates, and when prepping for the next horde, you'll have extra zombies that aren't dead yet chasing you and making any stalling pretty much impossible. The team took 16 hours to reach round 55, and after that ended up finding the door to the rest of the map. quitting out shortly after. The Jugside solo record is round 40 by Plant. On solo, the horde up idea is that you want the zombies to come out of the dentist window and the jug window first, giving you time to round them up next to the power door and finalize the horde in dentist. However, the possibilities get very complicated, as players have to come up with plans of action for almost every possible scenario. If you're interested, I've included a Jugside guide written by Plant in the description of this video for more detail. You still kill with grenades, although you have to pace them a bit slower. 2 in jug, 2 in dentist, then stall the horde by the power door and run to buy more. The strategy also slightly changes as you go up in rounds, as in higher rounds, the zombies start dying at a slightly different rate. The other tough thing is that there's no quick revive in here, so you can't take a single down. But despite all odds, Plant didn't. He played 4 hours to 40 and intentionally ended the game by opening the door. Now onto quick revive side, which is generally considered easier than jug side in solo, but harder in co-op. This side also has 3 main rooms, but instead of being a circle like jug side, they're in a row, making it much harder to horde up. The co-op record is once again higher than solo at 45 by Blackett and Inferno Martin from way back in 2020. You're essentially forced to use the middle room where quick revive is as the main hoarding room, although the quick revive machine is actually pretty in the way. Then you use the morgue room for tightening the horde and the long skinny room, called Juju by first room players, for emergencies. The urban legend of why this room is called the Juju room is because way back in the day, one of the best first room players, named Pumpkin Spice 666, played with his friend named Juju, and Juju was so bad that Pumpkin had to banish him to just holding the singular window in here while he carried, and the name has stuck in the community ever since. The fact that this round 45 record hasn't been beaten in nearly 6 years should give you a hint as to how tough Quickside is. To horde up, Blackett would let the morgue window in, then stall the quick revive window until the zombies from the morgue were safely hoarded up. Martin would just hold the Juju window. Eventually, Martin would run to morgue and they would merge, then shoot with the M1 Garands until the zombies slowly died. Blackett tried to stay in quick revive room as much as he could, but would often have to do cutbacks, which is when you turn in the complete opposite direction from where you're running to tighten the horde or avoid zombies. The game finally ended on 45 when Blackett got double slapped, and the full horde rushed Martin and Juju, where he was unable to turn them around and died too. On solo, the record is 39 by Zagosoft. I'm just going to let you watch some of this, because you need to see it to believe it.
Yeah, Mel. No way. Easy ball. Lennon düştü.
Oh my god!
Arka.
Oh, 180 million. No way, no way, no way, no way, no way.
With only yourself, you let the spawns from morgue in first, but you have to raw dog the Juju spawns while hoarding up, and you literally just dodge every single zombie coming out of the room. The one advantage in solo is that you can use all your revives and remove the quick revive machine off the map, giving you a blessing of extra space needed to hoard up slightly easier. Zago removed quick revive on 22, and from here on was able to play with 1 revive until 39. The hardest part of Quickside solo is timing your kills well enough to allow zombies to respawn in the room at a rate that you can dodge. This game ended in an incredibly random and unlucky way though, as the zombies for some reason all got stuck against the M1 wallby, blocking Zago's way, killing him, and ending his quest for the last 40 on a Verrucht first room. Although we're not done yet, because there's one more way to play Verrucht that I want to go over, and that is a challenge called Double Sides. This is where you have 1 player on Quickside and 1 on Jug side playing at the same time. The way to achieve this is just to start a game with 3 players, as only 2 players can be on one side, then have the extra player leave the game. game. Then it becomes a true test of who can play Verrückt to the best of their ability. The record on this is 32 by Bob Lee Swagger on Jug side and Zagosoft on Quick side. Both players have to be at the top of their game on their respective sides, as downing will bring down the whole game. The zombies tend to stop and stand still at points with this setup, as their pathing becomes buggy when they try to reach the other player but can't. This forced Bob Lee and Zago to stall more often. It is possible to revive each other, but only through this doorway where the grenade room connects to Juju. So depending on where you down in the room, you might just bleed out before you reach it, or the other player may just not be in a position to revive you. Plus, the quickside player cannot remove or even buy quick revive. But of course, we're looking at two experts in their field here, and they managed to play 3 hours to 32, with Bob Lee downing 11 times and bleeding out 2, and Zago downing 7 times and bleeding out 4. The game of course ended when these knockdowns finally lined up. Finally, moving on to the next map, Shinonuma's record is once again higher in co-op, that being 47 by Wad and Benny Z. The horde up here is substantially easier and just involves one player letting the zombies out of the window by the Car 98K, while the other player holds the mule kick windows with boards. Then the first player slowly leads his zombies over to the second. They let the rest of the zombies out, and voila! Then the first player runs the zombies in a circle by the Car 98K, while the second shoots from the Gewehr wallby. Things only change when the runner needs ammo, and he can walk back while blue player hides in the corner, then re-merges any zombies that pull to him afterward. Dog rounds are a bit vicious, as in co-op 4 can spawn at a time instead of 2, but the pair could use the circle trick around them to take care of them without too much trouble. They ended up quitting out on 47. The solo world record is slightly behind at 43 by Zato. Zato would actually do the opposite horde up from Wad and Benny, and hold the Car 98 side boards while the mule kick zombies came to him, then cut back around that area and run to mule, and by that time the entire horde was behind him. Then he'd simply run around the Car 98 side while killing. This game unfortunately ended to a pop-up from another program while he was playing, which tabbed him out and caused the zombies to swarm him. And since there's no quick revive in this room, he instantly died. And finally, Doris's first room record is not higher in co-op, and it is 52 by Tennis Balls 3. Doris also does not have quick revive, but it's pretty open like Kino or Ascension, so it's a little more forgiving. Tennis used the stairs and drop downs in his horde up, starting at the back and simply running up to the teleporter pad, then taking the stairs back to the beginning. He used this same route for shooting too, similar to World at War Doris, down to the ammo rebuying route. You can't glitch the dog on the teleporter platform on this game, but Tennis was able to use the circling exploit on both dogs anyway. The game ended on 52 when Tennis zoned out and didn't see a respawner in time to vault past him. Moving on to Black Ops 2, we don't see much functional difference from Black Ops 1. But a lot of the maps have quirks to them that give them a unique feature. The map we start with, however, is, another hard map. Bus Depot. First of all, one rule that saves players a bit of time that applies to the green run maps of Black Ops 2 is that you can use the custom games mode to start on round 10. This is because the first 10 rounds are very slow, easy, and boring, and it saves some time jumping into the actual hard part of the game. On to the record, Depot is interesting because of its layout. Treyarch happened to make this room so perfectly that it lends itself incredibly well to manipulating the horde in a way that basically makes every horde up unique. We'll start with the co-op record of 60, the highest round in this holy grail of a room. This record was achieved by Plant on white and Tonestone on blue. In general, the basic idea was that Plant would horde on the M14 side and Tone on the Olympia side of the room, and when they had all the zombies in the room, Tone would merge with Plant. However, this could go one of many ways, where they often had to freestyle routes around stragglers. One feature that makes Black Ops 2 immensely different from Black Ops 1 at a base level is the fact that there are up to 5 walkers per horde on high rounds. If you thought these were tricky on regular high rounds, get a load of them on first rooms. Many cutbacks and quick decisions had to be made in this game, and many circle revives revolved to get both players up and running again. This is a technique mostly used on earlier Call of Duties, where the reviver will slowly rotate around the revivee to stay just ahead of the horde, and can be very helpful in close quarters where you can only lead the zombies so far away before running to your teammate. As long as you keep the revive icon centered on your screen and within a certain distance of them, you will continue to revive even as you move. This depot record took over 42 hours, and on 60, Plant and Tone finally opened the door and walked out into the sunlight. The solo world record on depot sits at 53 by Belgian player I Tekalot, which is easily one of the most impressive first room games ever played. Obviously, alone you have no backup, no one to revive you, and just one mistake in the endless variations of horde ups and it's all over. But Tech hit every horde up perfectly, stalling each window for just the right amount of time with boards, weaving the zombies around in just the right way using the benches, and maintaining hyper awareness of what respawners were coming from where. Using nukes and insta-kills can be very dangerous on this map, as those will force you to do extra horde ups after they end, making them high risk, high reward. But Tech survived those too. He beat the previous world record by 12 rounds, and his game only ended after 15 hours, when one walker finally got perfectly in his way. Next up, we have Farm, which is much simpler than Depot. This record is 66 by Zato. Here you actually get some added advantages, those being quick revive and double tap, not to mention the huge open space in the first room, since this first room is actually about 3/4 of the entire map. There's only one door on Farm, so the only things you can't access are Juggernog, Speed Cola, the MP5, and the mystery box. Double tap is much better on this game than BO1 because here it makes you shoot 2 bullets for the price of 1 instead of just shooting faster, essentially doubling your damage. Unfortunately, there's no M14 on this map, so Zato's DPS was brought down a bit by the slow shooting Olympia. For the initial horde up at the beginning of the round, Zato would just stand over in this area, which would cause all the zombies to spawn in the barn, where he could easily round them up out by the truck. Then he'd run them all over the first room to keep them from bleeding out and to spread the walkers out. Another rule specific to green run first rooms besides Depot is that you're allowed to play with dog rounds enabled, which is not true for the regular high round. On this map, they're super easy to deal with as you can just use Galvanuckles. This game finally ended on a zombie round when he got blocked in the shed doorway after nearly 52 hours, and the zombies gave him a piece of their mind. If you thought Farm could go high in the first room, wait till you hear about Town, the highest first room record on Black Ops 2 at round 80 by I Tekalot. On Town, you also have access to much of the map in the first room, including Double Tap, Stamina Up, one of the mystery box locations, and most importantly, Pack-a-Punch. Tech restarted until he got a Ray Gun Mark II from the first mystery box, then used that and the Mustang and Sally's in the street outside the doorway to jug. He became increasingly sparing with his ammo as he wouldn't be able to trade out the ray gun when the box moved behind a door. On 65, he finally ran out, and with no max ammo in sight, he traded out the ray gun for a Pack-a-Punched M14, then did the last 15 rounds with that. To show how much of a difference the Mark II makes, he took about 3 hours to go from round 10 to round 65, but about 40 hours to go from 65 to 80. He was able to maximize his kills with insta-kill drops with Mustang and Sally to speed up those really slow kills in these rounds, and plus having dog rounds helped quite a bit too. He finally ended up dying on 80 when he was circling near the M14 wall by, and an ambitious zombie he didn't see jumped out of a window at the last second. But we're not quite done with Town yet, because if you haven't noticed yet, first roomers like to challenge themselves, so they actually developed a second way to play Town. Since the regular Town first room is not really that different from normal Town at first, and then it just becomes extremely boring once you trade out the Mark II, first roomers play a second version called Town Semtex, where you only stay in the Semtex area by the Olympia wallby and double tap. The highest round over here is 40 by Zeo and Plant in a 2-player game. The idea was that these two would horde up in the 2 main sections of the street area, area, then merge all the zombies to the host player. Then, like Verrückt Jugside co-op, the other player would spam grenades at the horde until they evaporated. These two ended up dying on 40 when Zio failed to circle the zombies, and then they swarmed plant immediately after. In solo, the record is down to 37 by Nazo, as it's slightly harder to nade by yourself, plus you don't have any revives. Nazo hoarded up by standing as far as he could against the barrier of what limits the Semtex area to spawn most zombies from this direction, then slowly circled them back while dodging drop-down spawns on the way. The game ended when he ran into a particularly bad spawn and got trapped. Nuketown isn't far removed from town, and its highest round is 64 in co-op by iTechalot and Flow203. On Nuketown, in co-op only, any perk can drop in the first room, but the most important ones are Pack-a-Punch and Double Tap for that extra damage. Tech and Flow got these, and Speed Cola as the cherry on top, and that let them spam their Pack-a-Punched M14s into the hordes at max speed. Nuketown's first room also has an interesting layout, as it's basically made up of a bunch of tiny areas connected by thin straightaways. There are also 2 choke points at the ends of the room, so you just have to be careful about crossing these when the zombies are also crossing. This is also the first room that does not have a single boardable window. Tech would hoard up by the M14 and Flow by the Olympia, as having half hordes are just about perfect size for hoarding up in these areas. Then Flow would combine with Tech and they'd shoot the horde around the Nuketown sign. They'd keep sallies for instas and extra damage, so the zombies died much quicker than a normal first room. This game didn't even end to a death. It actually ended when they were taking a break and Tech, the host, disconnected from the Black Ops 2 servers. The solo record on Nuketown lags behind at round 60 by Kassam, although this round is pretty impressive. That's because on solo, only Quick Revive can drop in the spawn room. That means Kassam had no advantages of Double Tap or Pack-a-Punch, only the weakest version of the M14. This made Kassam take over 50 hours to reach round 60, whereas Tech and Flow's game only took 18 hours. To hoard up on round starts, Kassam would utilize most of the room, starting by the Olympia, then running to M14, then running to the driveway of the Teal House, then cutting back the horde and training them around the sign from there. He finally ended up quitting on 60. Next up is Transit, but this barely deserves a mention, as it's literally just Depot with training wheels. The only difference on this version is that you have Quick Revive and permaperks like the Jug permaperk, which allows you to take 4 hits without Jug. iTechalot holds this record also with a 46 back in 2021. He used the same hoard up concepts as his modern Depot game, although since this game is nearly 5 years old, it wasn't as optimized. He ended up dying on 46 after about 7 hours when he realized he was a little too thick to fit past a zombie coming from the M14 window, got trapped against the Bus Route B map, and died. Moving on to the DLC maps, Die Rise's world record is 69 by Swedish player Diamanten. This is the only map on Black Ops 2 where you can get all the perks in the first room. It's pretty easy to do this by just being careful on the jumping jack special rounds to not miss a single shot, and you'll get a random free perk every time. All the perks are pretty helpful except Mule Kick, which is useless as the only wall buy in here is the Olympia. Double Tap allows you to get through rounds a lot faster, and Who's Who is helpful to give you free revives, since you're training with no panic weapon anyway, although it can give you a bad spawn and end your game early. Also helpful here are several of the perma perks, such as the Tombstone perma perk, which allows you to keep all your perks except Quick Revive after you down with Quick Revive, so you don't have to go through 5 more jumping jack rounds to get them all back. The other most helpful is the Headshot perma perk, which doubles headshot damage. This you activate whenever you get 5 headshot multi-kills, but deactivate from getting 25 non-headshot kills in a row. The round start horde up in here usually isn't too bad, as Diamanten would board this window and wait for the zombies to come from the drop downs, circle them around, then let the zombies from the stalled window come in, although the walkers could definitely pose a problem. Again, we can see how exponentially long a first room can get, as rounds 1 to 60 took Diamanten about 11 hours, but rounds 60 to 69 took him an extra 25 hours. After his last zombie round, 67, which took him 4.5 hours, he played out one more jumper round and quit on 69. Nice. It's worth noting, however, that while this game is generally considered world record by most first room players, it is controversial and does go against the rules of the Zombies World Records website. That's because Diamantin used a pink zombie reskin, which breaks ZWR's rules for high contrast camos, or camos that allow you to see the zombies better to avoid them. So if you disqualify it because of that, the next highest round is 67 by Chinese player Sun Li. Sun Li's game was very similar, although he played safer and much slower, as he was not as consistent about keeping the headshot permaperk. After 45 hours to round 67, and over 7 hours on that round alone, he would end up dying when respawners blocked his path, forcing him to turn up the stairs, but more respawners were waiting for him at the top, killing his run. Take cover, it's another hard map. While Mob might be a bit drab and repetitive for its high round, it is not like that at all for its first room. In here, it's ruthless, intense, breathless, the ground is shaking, Brutus is coming to arrest you, you're getting trapped in a corner, and you may start feeling like you're spending more time in Afterlife than alive. That is, if you're not Bob Lee Swagger and Zagosoft, who hold this first room's highest round at 51. As with all the hard maps, I'll just let some clips from this one play. Mob is just two small squares connected by a long hallway, but it is playable if you're the best of the best. The big advantage you have here is Afterlife, allowing you to take extra downs, manipulate the zombies while down, and revive yourself after. In co-op, each player gets one Afterlife per round. The idea here for the Horde Up is that you want one player in the library stalling the windows, and one player in the hallway stalling until the zombies spill in. The library player leads their horde to the other player, then the team has to turn the horde around at the other end of the room by doing very exact cutbacks, and then you have a horde you can slowly pummel with your guns, keeping them mostly in library. Walkers on here are diabolical, as they can do drive-by slaps and block doorways, so manipulating them around the room is critical. Brutus is the first fast boss zombie we've seen in a while, but luckily he's about the same speed as the zombies, so you just have to keep him with the horde and slowly pick away at his health, even though he hits harder than a normal zombie. Bob Lee and Zago made it all the way to 51 in 26 hours, their last round being 3 hours, and then ended up quitting out. The solo world record on Mob is 42 by Inferno Martin, as Mob becomes even more challenging in solo. The positive is that you have up to 3 afterlives in solo instead of 1, although you only get 1 more per round. The Horde Up difference in solo is that, while you do start in library, you have to wait for the zombies to come into library before you can get out, since no one is stalling them, meaning you have to dodge all the incoming zombies in this tiny room while the library windows are also breaching. Then you can lead them out to the other side of the room to gather the stragglers, turn them around, and bring them back to library to shoot them. When running out of ammo before a new Horde Up, players will just buy the Olympia so as not to have to move the Horde, and more importantly, the walkers. Martin would finally end up dying on 42 while down at the M14 side of the room, trying to finish up his turnaround but getting blocked by the walkers. Buried is definitely the weirdest first room on Black Ops 2. The first room is considered to be just the balcony area where you first start before dropping down, and it's much too small to hoard up on. But luckily there is one saving grace: PhD flopper and some stairs. You can use this to flop over and over and blow the zombies up as they run towards you. It's much easier in co-op, because if you have a good system for this, you can keep almost constant damage on the zombies. Funny enough, all the co-op records are tied, with Swagcord and Caprisca holding the 2-player at 43, Spanish team Zeta, Valije, and Zombie Killer with a 43 on 3P, and them plus a 4th, Ivani, with a 43 on 4P, tied also also with Swag Cord, Kaprizka, Amnesia Hardcover, and WAD on 4P. So we can safely say there's a pretty hard cap. The problem is that PhD falls off sharply around the late 30s and zombies will not die to one flop. You also have the advantage of the Jug perma perk for some extra hits, but as soon as you miss a flop, it's pretty much game over. Plus, if you down after round 15, you'll lose the Jug perma perk anyway. No matter how many players you have, you can only flop so fast without getting in each other's way. So 43 seems to be the round everyone goes 6 feet under. Kaprizka holds the solo world record here, shortly behind at round 39, which uses the same strategy but without the advantage of two people's flops. As such, he was not able to kill the zombies as fast as you can on co-op, and as you might expect, one flop fail doomed him. He did manage to get away with just a red screen and jump up to the emergency LSAT platform, but as soon as he flopped again, he got hit and died. But since Buried is a gimmick first room, there's an alternate version players try, much like Town Semtex, that plays more like the classic style. And surprise surprise, it's even harder. This is Buried Quickside, which encompasses the Quick Revive room and the 2 tunnels leading off of it. This is loosely similar to Verrucht Quickside, where you have a tiny room and the big honking Quick Revive machine is right in your way. Co-op is much easier here than solo, and the co-op record is 37 by Zeta and Valihe. The only wall gun in here is the Remington shotgun, which is powerful but slow. But in co-op, one player can also flop as the first player hoards next to Quick Revive. Valihe was tasked with handling barriers and stragglers, but it became harder and harder as the zombies got stronger. They finally ended up dying on 37 when Zeta downed while hoarding, and Valihe got sideswiped running out to get him. On solo, this record is triple tied at 26 by Kaprizka, Swag Cord, and Zeta. On solo, it becomes very hard to flop very early, because both flop points are in the tunnels where it's basically impossible to turn the horde around and you need to kill them immediately. On the bright side, in solo you can get rid of the Quick Revive machine, which gives you the perfect space to train. So that's what these 3 did as long as they could, until they all eventually died from failed horde ups on the same round. And finally, we have Origins, where the record is 58 by Flames and Kukazor. Origins is a very providing first room, as it gives you Quick Revive in both solo and co-op from the generator, and you can use the rewards chest to get both double tap and a pack-a-punched assault rifle. However, you can't buy ammo for this rifle, nor can you get double tap back if you lose it, so you still need to be careful. Flames unfortunately only kept his double tap from rounds 50 to 52, as he picked it up late to avoid losing it on early downs, but got trapped from behind soon after and lost it. The other nice thing about Origins is each player has their own room they can hoard up in co-op, so it's easy to loop at the beginning of rounds and then combine, giving the zombies to the bottom player to shoot with the M14 or his pack-a-punched gun if he had any ammo. If you watched my high round video, you know that Origins high round games always end at about 26 hours due to an animation error from the giant robots walking across the map. However, if you don't open the door to no man's land, the church robot will never spawn, meaning you'll actually get around a 39-hour error instead of 26. This allowed Flames and Kukazor to make it to a much higher round before erroring. The solo record stands at 56 by iTechalot from way back in 2018. Tech only got double tap after his final Quick Revive on round 35, but from there on he was able to power through rounds with his M14 and packed Galil much more efficiently. On horde ups, he would simply board the 2 upstairs windows and stall the generator one until the zombies came up, then run downstairs and begin circling the zombies around both floors while shooting. He did this for about 20 hours before he died to a surprise respawner at the M14. With Black Ops 2 wrapped up, next in line we have Advanced Warfare. I bet you thought, man, Advanced Warfare is hard enough with the exo-jumping zombies. Surely no one intentionally stays in the first room for hours and hours. Well, you'd be wrong. Outbreak is the highest and the only first room on this game that's higher in co-op, sitting at round 49 by Carlos Skrillex and Marinaccio Fran 98. Exo Zombies first rooms are quite tough because things get scaled against you even more sharply. You don't have an exosuit to work with in any of the first rooms, and there are a slew of different zombie types that are all designed to take you out even with a full build. On Outbreak alone, the simplest map, these include armored zombies, exploding zombies, electromagnetic zombies, and dogs, and infected rounds. weapons. The zombies are also often faster than you, and they don't horde up in tight clumps like on Black Ops 1 and 2, instead choosing to run around like lethal kindergartners on a sugar rush. Carlos and Marinaccio tried to time their movements and speed as the most important thing to outpace the zombies, and then put some shots into them with wall weapons. You can use combinations of jumping, crouching, and running to go faster. There's not really a nice clean initial horde up on this game, just trying to bounce through the chaos. But like World at War, there is a bleed out timer. It's longer, at about 4.5 minutes, but zombies don't have to be in the same place they were when it started to die. There are special rounds on Advanced Warfare, but there are two types: dogs and infected. Dogs are self-explanatory and pretty easy, but infected are dangerous, because if an infected zombie hits you, you will die in 60 seconds, or less if more zombies hit you. And the only way to get rid of the infection in the first room is to finish the round. The pair grinded for almost 10 hours before dying on 49. The solo record is 40 by Carlos Skrillex. Being alone is even more terrifying because you don't have your friend to use as a meat shield, and look how fast these zombies are. Carlos just ran the circumference of the room, giving the zombies a wide berth, peeking back and firing with the bulldog when he could. Advanced Warfare at least has a feature called Atlas Drops, which are items you can pick up such as turrets, drones, or camouflage that makes the zombies ignore you temporarily. Carlos finally died on 40 after getting trapped at this choke point. Infection's world record is also 40, also by Carlos Skrillex. Infection is equally as chaotic, but there are some advantages. First of all, there are a lot of boxes in this first room that you can jump between, and force the zombies into climbing animations over and over to slow them down. You can also use the electric trap that shocks the floor in this room as your main method of killing zombies. However, this map introduces some additional zombie types: spike zombies, who throw spikes at you when you shoot them or get close, and acid zombies that drop acid puddles on the ground. Even better, there's a Goliath boss zombie who will spawn about every 10 rounds to come ruin your day. On the bright side, there's actually a mystery box, or a 3D printer as it's called in this game, in the first room. So Carlos pulled an S12 from that and used it to lay into any zombies that got in his way while bouncing over the electric trap. Unfortunately, he ended up dying when he missed a jump and landed directly in an acid puddle. Carrier actually has two different first rooms, like Verrückt, one of which you'll randomly start in. These are named Mark 14 side and Bulldog side, after the wall weapons in each. Mark 14 side record is 30 by French player Apospo. This contains an open room with some obstacles and a smaller upstairs area as well. There's also a trap in this first room, a turret trap this time, that will gun down the zombies in the open room as they run through. However, it has a pretty significant challenge, which is part of the reason the record is so low. First of all, this map removes the acid zombies, but replaces them with teleporting zombies that will appear right next to you, already trivializing your movement. And every so often, bombs with a countdown will spawn in the room. You need to stand still to defuse them, which is obviously very difficult when the zombies are eternally bum rushing you. Even better, to defend the bomb, these giant Goliath zombies will spawn, or enemy soldiers with guns, which, as you can imagine, are very fun to fight with an M14 and no perks. If these go off, it's game over, because the room will be flooded with an infection that will kill you after 60 seconds. Apospo was able to use the camouflage to defuse most of the bombs, although it doesn't make you invisible to the Goliath and the soldiers. The rest just came from good movement to stay ahead of the welcoming party. He finally died on 30 to a Goliath who lit him up from across the room. Not cool. Bulldog side is even lower, at a tie for 24 between Apospo and ZSFR Maxinor. This is mostly because this room is smaller and doesn't have any traps, yet still has the same challenges as Mark 14 side with the bombs. Bulldog side consists of a larger lower room and a smaller upper room too, although they're arranged slightly differently and the upper has less spawns. The main strategy is to run loops around the upper and dodge the incoming spawns. Apospo played a 24 game in 2023 and Maxinor in 2024, but Apos died from a wall of spawns coming from the door, and Max died from getting infected by a bomb. Descent's world record is 41 by Carlos Skrillex again. This is the tightest of the Advanced Warfare first rooms, as it's just a rectangle of corridors, but once again you have some things in your corner. On rounds 13 and 20, you automatically get teleported to a challenge room that contains both the mystery box and Pack-a-Punch, so you can use any upgraded weapon against the Horde. The best being the blunderbuss or the Cell 3 cauterizer auto shotgun. You can also get this game's equivalent of monkey bombs here, which Carlos often used when he was about to become lunch. From here, Carlos just looped around the room, picking the zombies off slowly with these guns, and eventually died, getting double slapped in a gap. And now we're on to Black Ops 3, which changes up things a lot, as you'll see. We start off immediately with a hard map, Shadows of Evil. If you thought the Mob of the Dead first room was tiny, you'll be nothing short of claustrophobic here. Shadow's first room is a long alleyway with 2 main obstacles cutting in, and 2 small alcoves off to the side at the top. The record here is 44 by Exotic Lifeline, which is also the most recent record in this video. First, let's go over what you have in here. You have the classics, Quick Revive and 2 wall weapons, the Shiva, which is a rifle similar to the M14, and the RK5, a burst fire pistol. You have a pod at the back which can give you rewards, such as weapons, the best being a Locust sniper rifle for strong headshots, or a ray gun. You have 1 random drop you can use whenever you want in the loading dock room, and players restart for an insta-kill in there for emergencies. And you also have a beast mode torch, where you can enter an invulnerability mode once per round to let the zombies group up on their own. What are the bad things in here? Margwas. Harder than the Astro, harder than George, harder than Brutus or arguably the Goliath. Margwas suck, because you can only damage them when their mouths are open. They're fast once you break 1 head, they spawn bugs, and they not only do massive damage, they stall parts of the horde if they knock them down. To keep them complacent, players will actually play a Margwa round out with the Margwa for the entire round, being careful not to damage him into running, and only kill him at the end when there are no zombies to worry about. To do an actual horde up in here, the general idea is to let the zombies in from the gate side first, and then the stairs side, where you have the most, but still minimal, space to turn them around. The shooting route is running a sort of B shape around the beast mode torch and past the RK5 wall by. The replacement of flopping with sliding is a huge help in this game, since Black Ops 3 zombies also behave a bit differently than previous games. First of all, they hit way faster, and the fact that you can take 1 extra hit often isn't enough to save you from their viciousness. Second, unlike Black Ops 1 and 2 zombies, Black Ops 3 zombies cannot move through each other. This means that while you can wind super tight hordes on earlier first rooms, Black Ops 3 hordes always take up a lot more space because the zombies are more spread out, and as such, you need to give them a lot more room. The third thing, and this is actually quite helpful, you can stun Black Ops 3 zombies so they cannot hit you in certain situations. Black Ops 3 zombies cannot swing at you while they are being shot, so players will often hold the RK5 while hoarding and fire it into approaching zombies at the last second to keep them from delivering a hit. This can be life-saving, but it can't work miracles. Exotic died when he got cut off by a surprise respawner at Quick Revive, finally humbling him. But this record finally breaks the quadruple tie of 43, which had stood for more than a year, of which Exotic was a part, with 4 43s of his own. This just proves that any seemingly cursed barrier in zombies can be broken. You just might have to put in hundreds of hours to make it happen. The Giants world record is 54 by Brazilian player Bards. Here we can see once again how the first room mechanics change from World at War to Black Ops 1 to Black Ops 3. Bards actually didn't use the staircases to bait zombies at all. He just ran more cutbacks in the back area here until the zombies were quickly hoarded up, then continued to run them around here while shooting. It's also worth noting that on Black Ops 3, while the mechanic of zombies bleeding out if they're in the same place they were in 30 seconds ago still exists, here they will respawn with the health they were damaged down to, not full health, so bleed out avoiding strategies are not really as necessary. So Bards only stopped his tight circles to use the exact same route for Shiva ammo as the previous games did for Gewehr ammo. Dog rounds are not even frightening on this version, as dogs die to a few bursts of the RK5. Bards was in it for the long haul, as this game took over 17 hours, with his final round taking 3 hours. However, this is the only version of Der series where dogs spawn during zombie rounds without the power on, and Bards actually died to this when a wandering dog pulled up on him during a Shiva ammo run and blocked his exit. Starting with Der Eisendrache, I'm going to slightly change the way I explain these records. That's because on all the rest of the BO3 maps, there's a gobblegum machine in the first room. I'm going to split the categories now into two: records without using gums at all, and records using mega gobblegums. The megas are always going to be a lot higher, but the no gums records are the closest you can get to the classic first room style on this challenge. All having just classic gobblegums really changes is the fact that you can have safeties like in plain sight and anywhere but here to get away from the zombies. So I'm going to show the most hardcore and risky round on each of these first rooms instead. Starting with the no gums record on Der Eisendrache, round 50 by Robin Rounds and Exotic Lifeline. This room is pretty standard with a large lower area, top balcony walkway, 2 wall guns, and quick revive. However, its special feature is the gondolas. The first gondola will bring random rewards, mostly drops, but there's an Easter egg for even better rewards from the second gondola. Throwing a grenade in it at spawn and then inserting 5 tram fuses will bring much better rewards like monkey bombs, a packed haymaker or man-o-war, or even a ray gun. In Robin and Exotic's game, they received everything but the haymaker. This became very helpful in taking down the next hardest boss, the Panzer. This Panzer is ranged and can detonate stun grenades near you, making your situation much worse very quickly. You can, however, stun lock him into swinging long enough to disintegrate him with the ray gun. To keep from losing his gondola rewards, the second player, Exotic, stayed in the game during breaks. You'll notice they have the crawl space gobblegum, which is allowed even on no gums, because on Black Ops 3 you need a crawler behind a window to take a break, or you'll get hit too much while perma-warding the window. Since it's not used during actual gameplay, it counts, even for no gums. The solo record is 1 round lower at 49 by Exotic. Exotic got the haymaker for Panzer takedowns, and for the rest of the time used the Shiva on the zombies. For the horde up, he stayed by the jump pad window and waited for the zombies to approach, then crossed the room and circled back, completing the horde up on the second floor. The game took about 9 hours before ending in one of the most embarrassing deaths on this list. Normal for Exotic though. He accidentally killed himself with his own grenade during an insta-kill. Now let's talk about the Mega Gobblegum record. This changes the challenge a lot. Namely because you can A, get all the perks, and B, you can get alternate ammo types to kill instantly at any round. Then the challenge comes down to how you can maintain a horde with constant groups of respawners as you kill with AATs like Deadwire. Pretty much any gum goes for this category, although some are still banned for being insanely overpowered. Flavor Hexed, Self-Medication, Near-Death Experience, Power Vacuum, and Round Robin, for basically making it impossible to die. Der Eisendrache's Megas record is 105 by Fatfish 4. Fatfish used Perkaholic for all the perks, Wall Power for pack-a-punching the Shiva and RK5 off the wall, Bullet Boost for Deadwire on the RK5 and Fireworks on the Shiva, Idolize for safety or to kill panzers, and Raindrops to spawn one of every drop for free. Fatfish would run slow trains on the ground floor, killing once per loop with Deadwire for not too many respawners, and running upstairs for emergencies. The game took about 11 hours to reach the end, and Fatfish actually went down on 101 and was unable to get his perks back for the rest of the game from bad gum luck. He ended up suiciding on 105 because he ran out of time to play. Zetsubo Noshima's record with no gums is 54 by French-Canadian Quebec Skills. This is one of the bigger first rooms, with twisting pathways up to a clearing at the top and an entire swimmable lake at the bottom. There's no quick revive in this room, so 1 down means death. But to balance it out, Skills was able to get a little more firepower than just the wall weapons by growing an orange pod and getting an XM53 rocket launcher out of it. Spiders do spawn in here, but they're not too debilitating if you keep your distance, just like you would from a normal 2-foot tall spider. Thrashers, the boss zombie, can spawn too, but they won't as long as you keep zombies away from spores on the wall near the door. This is one of the few first rooms that actually has spawn control within the room. If you're at the top here in the clearing, the zombies will only spawn from the top 2 windows. Skills use this to spawn in all the zombies and turn them around in the lake at the start of each round, then utilize much of the room while shooting depending on the spider spawns. He finally died after 17 hours while trying to blow up some crawlers in the lake. The record with megas is 125 by a Spanish player Ivan TRN. Ivan used the same gums that Fatfish did in his Dreisendracht game, except he used in plain sight for temporary invisibility from the zombies instead of raindrops. With Deadwire on the RK5 and turned on the Shiva, he was able to constantly kill streams of zombies coming out of the 2 windows at the top in the spawn control. If he got stuck by bad spawners, he could always save himself. This game took less than 10 hours before Ivan was trying to use a death machine to hold back a horde, and got slapped one too many times, and instead of trying to spin the gum machine for his perkaholic back, he just quit out. Gorod Krovi is back to being unapologetically chaotic, as there's really no version of Gorod Krovi that's not chaotic. The first room record here is 51 by Exotic Lifeline. This room is a tight maze of passageways and tunnels, except for one fairly open area by Quick Revive. However, this area is often set upon by your friendly neighborhood dragon, who breathes fire on it for 10 seconds at a time. Exotic would stand by this window between the fountain and the challenge graves, and then run toward the open area to group up the horde, although depending on when the dragon did his drive-by, he might have to stall the zombies before he went there. Then he'd loop around the back of the map to kill them with a pretty powerful weapon, the Pack-a-Punched L4 Siege. You can obtain this through the challenge graves pretty early on, and use it to kill lots of full hordes, as it has over 100 shots. He would accentuate this with shots from the Shiva or RK5 by the building in higher rounds. Manglers and Valkyrie drones will spawn in here, taking pot shots at you or electrifying the zombies, but he always saves some siege ammo for them. He would eventually end up dying on 51. Gorod Krovi's Megas record is not even much higher at 76 by Fatfish 4. On this version, you don't need the L4 Siege, since AATs are more powerful anyway. Fatfish used Deadwire on the RK5 and Thunderwall on the Shiva, plus a Pack-a-Punched HG40 instead from the challenge graves with Blast Furnace, since he had Meal Kick and you can't put AATs on explosive weapons. Fatfish would hoard up by the building until he got pushed out, and then use Cherry to stall or stun the zombies if needed on his route back to the training spot. There, he just slowly killed with his AATs, moving around the map accordingly to take down Manglers or Valkyries with his firepower too. He would even sometimes stall the zombies in this choke point by freezing the front one with a Widow's Wine knife, and then killing the horde once they all queued up. On 76, he actually had a lightning fast down to some zoned out movement, and while he tried to continue until he got Perkaholic back, he wasn't able to survive. Revelations with no gums has a record of 49 by Brazilian player Blathau. This room has a good amount of space with your classic Shiva RK5 Quick Revive, but they could never make it that easy, could they? Margwas and Panzers spawn in here, and they're very hard to kill. Furies will also spawn and try to throw themselves at you from Olympic distances, and they can knock zombies down. You're not allowed to use the laser turret to kill because that requires activating the door. Not that it's very good anyway. Blathau would hoard up on this side with the turret with the closest barrier boarded, then run around shooting with the Shiva. He survived 10 hours before he died to a slide fail and a backslap. It's worth noting how insane this first room gets in co-op too, as in co-op the game decides to spawn multiple Margwas and Panzers at a time. Co-op's highest round is 45 in 3P by Deafened, Wave 279, and Crackadia, where they received a surprise of 3 Panzers at the same time, which is basically impossible to survive, even for someone with a name like Crackadia. Revelations with Megas is a whole different ballgame, with a record of 242 by Faded Z. This is the first Black Ops 3 map where there's a mystery box in the first room. That means with a gum like Raindrops that spawns fire sails, you can get wonder weapons out of the mystery box without ever opening the door. That's exactly what Faded did, getting the Thunder Gun, Apothecon Servant, Lil Arnie's, Ragnaroks, and the Shiva out of the box. He pack-a-punched all these with the gum Crate Power, although for certain things this becomes one of the most chaotic setups. A short Easter egg is required to get the Pack-a-Punched apothecant servant, so he had to get it once out of the box, shoot all 5 microscopic floating crystals with it from the spawn room for the upgrade quest, then trade it out and get more raindrops to hit for it again, then receive it from the box, run to the gun machine, get crate power, and pick the gun up before it disappeared so it would be pack-a-punched. He used shopping free to double hit the gun machine way more often, as it can get extremely pricey in higher rounds, and that way he could pull more raindrops for more max ammos. This is a first room where the classic gumball alchemical antithesis is useful, to earn ammo back for the wonder weapons instead of points for a short time. He never even really needed to hoard up, as he would kill in high rounds by slamming with the Ragnaroks, recharging them with the Servant, and accentuating this with Deadwire from the Shiva, and using the Thundergun for Panzers and Margwas. Unfortunately, he fell a few rounds short from the max round when his game errored after 44 hours, from too many Widow's Wine grenades going off and too many Ragnarok slams. Moving on to the Zombies Chronicles maps, we'll see once again some different ways of playing rooms we covered earlier, adjusted for Black Ops 3 mechanics. Nocturne Toten has a no-gums record of 44 by French player Bitem. For this horde up, Bitem boarded all the windows except the help door window, and stalled the one by the RK5 wall by in the middle of the room. He let all the zombies come in, then did some cutbacks by the help door until they were all hoarded up. Then he'd just run this circle blasting with the Shiva, whose wallby was right on his route. After about 8 hours, he accidentally backed into this shelf and got stuck, showing just how fast your game can go from 100 to 0 with no quick revive. With megas, the record is 138 by Mob Zombified, a record from way back in March 2018, making it, in fact, the oldest first room record in this entire video. And watching some will make you see why people haven't been falling over each other to play this record. It's painfully slow and boring. Mob used In Plain Sight, Perkaholic, Wall Power, Bullet Boost, and Fatal Contraption to spawn death machines. For most of this game, he just ran circles by the help door and let loose Deadwire or Blast Furnace once per loop. The game took well over 25 hours, and ended when he got clipped by a zombie at the Shiva wallby. The Horde quickly took all his Widow's Wine defenses. He made the fatal mistake of popping Fatal Contraption instead of shooting Deadwire, and the drop spawned out of his reach. When he tried to go back for his drop, he instantly died. Now we're back to Verrucht again, and I would still consider this one of the hard maps even on Black Ops 3, especially with no gums. The highest of any of the no-gum Verrucht records on Black Ops 3 is Gian Euphoric and Demand's 42 on Jugside. This record plays similarly to Black Ops 1 Jugside, but there's a trade-off. Faster swinging and wider spreading zombies for the ability to stun them with the RK5 as you run past, so you can apply your training skill in a different way. I mean, just look at this. Demand on blue killed largely by standing by the grenade wallby and hurling nades at the zombies. But there's a problem. On Black Ops 3, throwing too many grenades will actually error you, but you have to throw around 4,000 grenades in a single game to crash. Well, by round 42, that's exactly what happened. The solo record on Jugside is 29 by Doppio. This room is really tough solo with no safety gums because of how vicious the zombies are. In fact, it might just be the hardest first room record on this entire game. Doppio actually wouldn't board any windows for the horde up, and just ran cutbacks in the open space here, circling through the delayed zombies and stunning them if they got too close. But one wrong turn and it was all over. The Quickside world record is much higher at 37 by Robin Rounds. This horde up is very similar to the previous Quicksides as well, although you don't board any windows and just stun the zombies as you run past them in the middle room. To finalize the horde up, Robin would retreat to the morgue and do some fancy cutbacks to turn the horde around. Then he'd just run the perimeter of the room firing with the RK5. Training with the quick revive machine in the room was hard enough that Robin removed it on round 18, but didn't use his last revive until 33. He died on 37's Horde Up when he got tugged on by two zombies that weren't quite as far apart as he thought. And finally, the Megas record on Verrückt is 136 by Faded Z. Because with gums you can use anywhere but here to teleport between the two sides, the first rooms are not considered divided on this version, although Faded stayed on Jug side because it has the mystery box. That way he could get the Wunder Waff with fire sails, which on Black Ops 3 is basically like extra dead wire you can spam, as it kills about 10 zombies per shot. He simply ran small groups of zombies around by the power door and shot either the Waff or the Shiva with dead wire. Yes, those are tentacles on the Shiva. Don't think about it too hard. He also got a high ammo gun, in this case the PPSH, with Blast Furnace. Faded refilled the Waff with Alchemical Antithesis when he didn't have rain drops for a max. This game was pretty quick, only 13 hours, but on 136 Faded ran out of Waff ammo. He tried to do full horde ups for a while, killing all the zombies at the same time with AATs, but downed at the end of one, and revived in the middle of the horde. Unlucky. Shino Numa has a record of 48 by Albanian player Mars, and uses the exact same strategy as Black Ops 1 Shino. Mars would board and hold the two windows on the far side of the room while the opposite two came in. Then he'd run past the incoming zombies and grab them on the other side, then return to square one. He'd shoot around the entire room as the zombies didn't group up as closely. On Black Ops 3, Quick Revive is actually in this room, so Mars had a few extra mistakes he could make. Still, he took 2 downs the same way on 48, and died from bouncing off the horde trying to slide away from the RK5 wall buy. The Megas record is 138 by Saudi player Himoy. Himoy used the exact same horde up route as Mars. He just did it for every horde, since once the zombies were grouped up, he could kill the full horde with fireworks and dead wire. The rest of his gums were just for safety. Fireworks will usually take out part of the horde, and then dead wire is used to finish the last few off. But on the last horde, fireworks fell short, and Himoy hesitated a little too long to group the zombies up for dead wire, getting stuck and downing. When he was revived, they killed him instantly. Kino der Toten has a no-gum record of 55 by Delta News. Kino is a bit weird, only in that it is one of only 2 maps where the shoot-to-stun technique does not work. No one knows why. Luckily, this room is one of the more open ones, and you don't have as much need to stun. Delta would horde by boarding the window by Quick Revive and baiting in the other windows, then wrapping them around the teleporter pad. You do need to be a little careful on this version, as the teleporter pad has a very glitchy collision, and you can get stuck on it or have your slide interrupted very easily. From here, Delta just circled the bottom of the room with the Shiva. The game took 13.5 hours to 55, with 54 taking 3 hours. Before Delta quit out, the second 55 appeared on screen, so you can tell just how done he was with this game. The Megas record on Kino is 218 by Joel Simmons, another very high one. We have another mystery box location in the first room here, so Joel used fire sails to get the thunder gun and monkey bombs for safety. Other than that, he used the Shiva with dead wire and a high ammo gun with fireworks for killing. Like Revelations or Verrückt, he used Alchem for wonder weapon ammo refilling and to speed up rounds when he could. This was actually the first round 200 ever in a first room, but Joel ended up erroring on 218 after 43.5 hours because he detonated too many Widow's Wine grenades. If you thought Ascension was long and boring on Black Ops 1, you're gonna love it on Black Ops 3. The record here is 66 by Duda Pernalonga, in a game that took over 80 hours. There's even less strategizing and variation on this version because you don't need to worry about zombies bleeding out, so you can just run them around in a tight circle at the lander pad where you spawn. Even the horde up is very simple, with Duda just boarding the 2 downstairs windows and cutting the zombies back on the lander pad. He finally died when he accidentally ran into the centrifuge while backing up and got stuck. The Megas record on Ascension is the only record on Black Ops 3 that has reached the max round of 255 in the first room. And this makes Ascension the highest round with the normal scaling amount of zombies in any first room ever. This has actually been achieved by 4 different people. First by Maney in 2021, and also by Packed Punch, Acidad, and Lancer Shot, with Lancer Shot doing it in the fastest time of just under 74 hours. Ascension is the logical winner for the highest round in a first room because A, there's a mystery box in the first room too, and B, the actual high round strategy takes place in here anyway. As such, you basically play the exact same way you would normal Ascension, with Shiva Deadwire and RK5 turned, and the Thundergun for safety. However, with the power off, you don't have the benefit of Space Monkey rounds, so no free ammo, and the game takes about 20 hours longer with all the rounds being zombies. This made opening the door and turning on the power after 75 to 85 hours, and finally seeing in color, even sweeter. Shangri-La has a higher record in co-op than solo, at 55 by Oso Moisty and Fader. This is the only map on Black Ops 3 where you can get all the perks in the first room without any gums, from the monkeys taking and changing max ammos. However, the monkeys are even more of a help here than they are on Black Ops 1, because they can be exploited. Not only do they steal regular drops, but they can steal Widow's Wine drops as well. Fader would run the zombies around at the front of the room, and Moisty would work a scheme in the back. He would knife respawning zombies to web them and make them able to drop Widow's drops. And then when one spawned, he'd have the monkey take it and turn it into an insta-kill. Then they'd use that to kill about 2 hordes. This system went on until they were trying to horde up after one insta. Fader went down at the front and Moisty got stuck trying to get control of the horde. However, on solo, you can't really do this strategy because you need one player distracting the zombies. The record in solo is 49 by Moisty again, although to kill he'd just run around the entire room shooting Shiva. For horde ups, he'd just board only this window and then run away from it, making for a pretty easy horde up. He ended up dying to a respawner after getting stuck trying to buy Shiva ammo, and instantly quit since he lost his perks. The Mega's record for Shang is 162 by however you pronounce this name. Keck used an interesting set of gums that are helpful specifically for this map. Rain drops for the perks, maxes, and instas, crate power to pack his guns, and then Immolation Liquidation, Licensed Contractor, and bonus points because they spawn drops and have the most activations of any single gumball. Then he could let the monkeys take each drop and turn it into a max or insta. To horde up, he'd start at the same window as Moisty, but he'd cut around the first part of the wall in the center, then run back to his starting spot, babyfy the zombies, run through them, and repeat. On 160, things started going down the drain when he hesitated at a choke point and ended up getting bodied by respawners, taking his first down. Here he lost all his perks, making his job much harder as all he had to get them back was raindrops for 2 perks at a time, or monkeys taking max ammos and turning them into perk drops, which were very unreliable to catch mid-round. After this, he started doing a safer version of the strategy where he led the zombies farther back and shot them instead of punting them all. He survived for an impressive 2 more hours with no jug, but he would end up using the rest of his quick revives this way. He finally died on 162 when the baby zombies pounded his shins to a pulp and he got ganked by a respawner. Moon's record with no gums is 102 by Blathau. This might seem like a surprising record considering what we know about ammo problems on Black Ops 1 Moon. But there's one important change on Black Ops 3. If you do every Easter egg in the game, you'll start on all maps with both a pistol and an RK5. This is critical because it means that you have it in no man's land and can pack-a-punch it and put an AAT on it. Blathau bought Jug, packed his Mustang and Sally for early rounds, since you can't put an AAT on explosive weapons, and put Blast Furnace on his RK5 to kill full hordes. Then it was just a mission of timing his loops around the room with the zombies jumping out of the windows, letting all the zombies close to him out in one loop and then roasting them. The astronaut is much easier to deal with here as he dies pretty quickly to AATs as well. However, sometimes it's not quick enough. Blathau never bought quick revive as he didn't want death machines, nor did he want to lose Jug. Unfortunately, the astronaut grew 6-foot arms on one of his loops, snagged Blathau, and teleported him across the room into a corner where the zombies swarmed him. With Megas, you don't need the RK5 Easter egg mumbo jumbo as you can just use gums to get all the guns and AATs you want from the box location in the first room, not to mention the wave gun. Another Brazilian, H10ec BR, used these to achieve round 172 without leaving the first room. He used the Kuda with Deadwire and the Dingo with Blast Furnace to kill full hordes. plus the wave gun for safety and ammo gums to refill. When running, since there's only 2 windows, he could just take gaps between zombies instead of doing a consistent full horde up. This game would actually end to a disconnect while paused since it was played online on PS4. And Origins has a no-gum record of 53 by Norwegian player NextGen. This plays much the same as Black Ops 2, with double tap being a huge help. This is the other map where you cannot stun to shoot zombies for whatever reason, but the horde up is usually clean. NextGen boarded the top 2 windows and ran them almost exclusively upstairs by the generator, firing off with the Shiva or RK5 and a packed Weevil from the rewards chest. On 53, after trying to regain control of the respawning horde after an insta-kill, they backed him into a corner and downed him, and he quit right away since he had no way to get double tap back, making the rounds much slower. The record with Megas is 129 by Asidad. This is your pretty standard Megas first room, RK5 with Deadwire, Shiva with fireworks, and no need for the chest weapon. Asidad didn't even board the windows at the start of rounds. He just ran a series of cutbacks at the generator until all the zombies were behind him, and proceeded to kill them from there. He held on to safety gums, but in the end they couldn't save him. He actually downed on 129 from widowed zombies blocking his way, which is why you normally see players throwing away their widow's grenades at the beginning of rounds. But he couldn't avoid it since he got a badly timed max ammo mid-round. He tried to recover, but didn't last long with no perks.
GG.
Now we can move on to Infinite Warfare. This time, unlike previous record breakdowns for this game, I am going to split between the Fate Cards Only category and the Fate and Fortune card category, as Fortune can give you significant help in the first room. The way cards work is a bit different than Gobblegums. You start holding all 5 of your equipped cards, and you can use any of them at any time, even activating them early in preparation for a certain thing to happen, like getting a red screen or shooting a certain weapon. Although in the first room, you can only use each card once, as there's no card refill station. Starting with Fate Only, we have the Spaceland record of 54 by Italian Infinite Warfare expert Leo Corno. Spaceland has a very simple first room, with a window in each of the 4 corners of the room, and 2 obstacles in the center. Leo conducted a pretty easy horde up by using another exploit. You can throw C4s that drop from zombies on top of zombie spawns to temporarily disable up to 4 spawns. Leo disabled 2 of his 4 spawns, the 2 on the left side of the room. Then he just ran around the room shooting the hailstorm wall by. An important unique aspect of Infinite Warfare is weapon variants, which are special versions of weapons you can unlock and equip to your loadout for special powers. In this case, Leo used the Ordnance variant of the Hailstorm because it does extra damage. He also got a rare pack-a-punch drop to pack it. Brutes do spawn in here, but you can just raw dog them without much trouble as long as you stay out of their way. The game took about 4 hours before Leo took his final down, getting blocked by a linebacker of a respawner. For the Fortune version, Leo also holds the record at 82. This was basically the same idea with some more advantages. The cards he used were Second Wind, which is a safety card that kills all nearby zombies when you get red screened, Reanimated, which gives you a free revive, Perk Insured to keep all his perks after a down, Death's Party to spawn an insta-kill, and Pack and Heat for a random double pack-a-punched weapon. He just happened to get the M1 Garand, which you can buy ammo for in this room. He used the Gambler variant of the Kendall, the starting pistol, to get a random perk every 75 kills with that gun, and ended up getting Juggernog, Double Tap, PhD, and an Infinite Warfare perk that makes flame tracks when you slide. However, it became very hard to kill with the Kendall after a while, which was what the insta-kill card was for. The double-packed M1 has a much higher fire rate than normal, so he could punish the zombies. He used the same horde-up strategy as his Fate-only game, and ran this for 17 hours before he finally decided to quit out. Raven the Redwoods has by far the weirdest shaped first room on this game, and its record is 37 by Leo Corno with Fate cards only. It's basically 3 tiny rooms, a porch, and a balcony inside one of the rooms. This is the only map on Infinite Warfare where you cannot block spawns with C4, but there is one area of refuge on the balcony as no zombies spawn up there. Gas grenades can be particularly helpful here as they kill all the zombies as they try to come up the stairs. With some careful timing and cutbacks, you can actually do sort of a horde up here, but it's very sketchy and can't really be maintained for shooting. Leo relied a lot on his cards to help help him out, using ones that allowed him to kill with melees like Timely Torrent, get 50 free insta-kill shots with the M1 like Eagle Eye, or regenerate gas grenades to camp reliably on higher rounds like Nade Party. But of course these eventually ran out. You can also go into rave mode from the fireplace for the ability to temporarily do slams to kill zombies. But it's extremely hard to make it sustainable, as a very nice man with a chainsaw will start chasing you in rave mode. Leo died when he had nothing left but Eagle Eye and tried to get a horde up, but didn't shoot soon enough. With fortune cards, Leo boosted this room a little higher to round 51. In his deck, he put Pack and Heat to upgrade his gambler weapon for the beginning of the game, which gave him Jug, Stamina Up, Speed Cola, and Slappy Taffy for a more powerful melee, and Double Tap. He used Get Packed, which upgraded his M1 off the wall, Power Play, which spawns more drops to get a pack drop, as on Rave you can double pack this way, and Eagle Eye and Explosive Touch to blow up zombies that came too close. The double packed M1's over-caffeinated fire rate allowed him to camp for much of the game on the stairs. In later rounds, he could even lead the zombies back and forth off the balcony like this and lay into them. But it didn't work forever. On 51, he was backed into a corner by too many and ate it. The fate record on Shaolin Shuffle is 51 by Russian mystery man Savetsky Bober. This room consists of a train car, 2 platforms, and an upstairs alternate route, and actually has 8 spawns. But Bober blocked almost all of them with C4, except for the 2 inside the train and 1 in the corner by the telephones. He used gambler variants to farm perks like Jug, Speed Cola, and Double Tap. This is the only Infinite Warfare first room with a box location in the first room, and fire sales will spawn in here without you having to move the box, so you can use this one. But there are no wonder weapons in the box, so it's really only useful to get stronger gambler weapons for the setup. Bober had a pretty easy horde up, running circles around the room with the wall pistol, the Hornets, and using the upstairs route in emergencies. The hardest part about this first room, and map in general, is the ninja zombies that will teleport in front of you when you start sprinting. But Savetsky could time his sprints to specific areas where, when they popped up, he could avoid them. Unfortunately, one of these run-ins went downhill and Bober died dashing through the train. The fortune record on Shaolin is 66, also by Savetsky Bober. With fortune cards, this room doesn't change too much. Bober instead elected to use Pack and Heat to double pack his Hornets into a much stronger version with tons more ammo. He also used Power Play for pack drops and Second Wind, Perk Insured, and Explosive Touch for safety. From there, he basically used the same strategy as his Fate cards run. He was just able to get farther because he had stronger firepower. The game finally ended on 66 when Bober was taking down a ninja and accidentally got forced up the stairs. Then another ninja spawned in front of him and sent him to the Shadow Realm. And Attack of the Radioactive Thing is one of the most bizarre first rooms of all, but not because of the layout or the things available to you in here. It's because this room always gives you an error in the early 20s. That's right, if you don't open the first door, the leading theory is that the special enemy type of Krogs will try to spawn, but can't as you progress through rounds, and this leads to the game crashing extremely quickly. As such, this is tied with Carrier Bulldog side for the lowest record on our entire list at just round 24 by Bober again. But this is one of the most impressive achievements on this game. In early 2026, Bober spent 2 weeks straight grinding to beat the triple joint record of 23 that had stood for 3 years. The way the randomness of the crash shakes out, you'll pretty much always randomly crash on 21, 22, or 23, with each round getting exponentially rarer as you go up. Bober crashed 133 times on one of those 3 rounds in those 2 weeks before he reached round 24, which is basically the holy grail of this challenge. And that's not even counting the amount of times he died. The strategy is very simple, where Bober blocked the back 2 spawns with C4 and camped the front 2 with the Hornets pistols and the Hailstorm. His game lasted miraculously long before crashing. It's entirely possible that this record will never be beaten. With fortune cards, the run is only made mildly easier with advantages like pack-a-punched weapons. 24 on Fortune was achieved back in 2022 by jscryne99 and joined in 2023 by Bober and Red Death. These games just mixed in extra killing power, defense like explosive touch, and ammo regulation like ammo crate, which spawns an ammo regen crate on the ground. Could 25 be possible with Fortune or even with Fate? Only time will tell. And Beast from Beyond is not played for a first room record, as if you don't turn the power on, only a handful of cryptids will spawn per round, and the first room is not challenging at all. Now we're on to World War II, where we can take a rest from split categories for a minute. The launch map, Final Reich, is a record that's higher in co-op than solo, at 36 by DeQuick Hayden and RDE. This room is one very tight alleyway that becomes basically impossible to train in the 30s, a little like Buried. Luckily, World War II has two helpful features: specialists, abilities that you spawn with and activate when charged, and passives called mods that allow you to spawn with special advantages. For this room, Hayden and RDE use the Free Fire Specialist, which gives you temporary infinite ammo, with a mod called Mark II. Mark II upgrades the gun while Free Fire is active into the Pack-a-Punched version, packing the starting pistol into the lovingly named Bacon and Eggs. With this, you can just kamikaze everything because the explosions it makes don't hurt you. Farming Free Fire back is based on point gain, so in between activations, Hayden and RDE would spam the pistol or throw satchel charges to damage groups of zombies for points. There's also a Panzer-esque boss zombie called a Brenner that spawns every 5 to 6 rounds, who thinks it's cool to run around after you with a flamethrower. The only way to kill this guy before he kills you is with Free Fire, so the pair had to time some of their Free Fire charges around when they knew he was going to spawn. RDE would also bleed out at the end of some rounds to gain more satchel charges back when he respawned at the beginning of the next. Unfortunately, these two hit a point pretty quickly where Hayden died while trying to kill the Brenner with his Free Fire, and RDE couldn't build his back in time and died on 36. Meanwhile, Hayden holds the solo record at 34, using basically the same strategy. He ran back and forth across the room to farm points for Free Fire, but with only one player, he could only use so much, even with 3 quick revives and 2 extra self-revives. He at least only got 1 Brenner spawning at a time, instead of up to 3 in co-op. Another thing to watch out for in World War II is these armless zombies, which come randomly from damaging regular zombies and become much faster, and can easily end your first room attempt. Besides that, Hayden mostly relied on drops to save him, but his luck ran out on 34 when he got clotheslined by a whistling boss zombie. Grosstenhouse's world record is higher on co-op by 2 rounds as well, at 85 by Hayden and Spedic Gaming. This is the only record in this entire video that has a higher round in the first room than the regular world record, as the regular co-op world record before this was only 80. Since this map is so small, being just someone's house, the first room is 90% of the map, and the only thing you can't access on the map is the mystery box. However, the mystery box is very helpful on this map, as you can get jack-in-the-boxes, this game's version of monkey bombs, and other weapons that give you significant damage advantages or safety. You also can't access Pack-a-Punch in the first room because you obtain it through an Easter egg that involves throwing jack-in-the-boxes. However, you can get any perks you want, as there's a Wunder machine in here. You can also get armor, which lessens the damage that zombie hits do to you. The way that Hayden and Spedic killed was running around the entire map and firing into the zombies with the Lucky Crit mod equipped, which has about a 5% chance for each bullet to insta-kill a zombie. As like previous games, zombies on these higher rounds will have millions of health. Electric Cherry is also a lot stronger on this game, and will only take about 3 bursts to kill a zombie no matter what, when comboed with the melee perk, so the team used these on any close zombies. They also used the specialist Shell Shock to stun zombies that hit them like a Black Ops 3 Widow's Wine grenade. One weird thing worth noting is that there's a bug on this game that's very prevalent on this map in particular, where the laser effect on any wall buy will duplicate when you purchase ammo from it. With a few times this isn't bad, but after hundreds of times buying ammo, it will start messing with the performance of the game. Because Hayden and Spedic were playing on an old gen console, it removed all drop visual effects in later rounds, and started lagging the hell out of their game whenever they were looking at the wall buy. They ended the game on 85 by opening the door and pulling weapons out of the box until they died. The solo record, 83 by Spedic, played a very similar way, just without the backup of having a co-op partner and the extra lucky crit procs. The Wunder actually became his downfall this game, as he got trapped on it by a zombie and died. Prologue is like the bare bones version of Groston House, kind of like what Bus Depot is to Transit. The first room record here is 42 by Spedic Gaming. It's the same layout as Groston, but you have almost nothing to work with. No perks besides Quick Revive, so no Electric Cherry, no mods, so no Lucky Crit, no lethals, so no throwing knives, no Shell Shock Specialist for stunning zombies for safety, as you can only use free fire on this version, no drops whatsoever, and still no mystery box, of course. Spedic ran the zombies around in the reverse direction in this game compared to Groston, since the spawns are slightly different and can easily trap you if you tried playing the normal Groston House high round method. Spedic survived 4 hours before dying from getting cut off by respawners near the kitchen stairwell. The Darkest Shores record is 53 by Hayden. Here you're washed up on a fairly open beach, but zombies come at you from all sides. On this map, your main killing method is infinite damage bombs dropped by bomber zombies, which you can shoot to blow up other groups of zombies. Another thing to note about World War II is that only 18 zombies can spawn at a time on this game, instead of 24, and it usually shakes out to be 16 zombies and 2 Wustlings, the more powerful armored zombies. The Wustlings can run over crawlers and kill them, which actually helps you out a lot in using less bombs. A lot of the specialists from here on out are for safety, like in this case, Hayden used camouflage instead of free fire to protect himself. But one of the challenges of this map are the fog rounds. Here, the zombies will ignore you unless you make sudden movements, get near them, or shoot. And you better get ready to hide, because this freaky ass crab zombie will spawn too. You can hide for the first 30 seconds he's around, but then he'll notice you and you have to run from him for a full minute until the fog ends. Nothing you have will kill him, but he'll go away after the 90 seconds of fog are up. Hayden and Spedic actually recently found another way to help with these rounds though, where if you jump crouch and melee into the water, your visual effect of the fog will go away, so this may be used in future attempts. But it wasn't a fog round that killed Hayden anyway. He eventually died this game when trying to round up the zombies got particularly hairy, and he couldn't make it past. The Shadowed Thrones record is 72 by Spedic Gaming. This room is a big L shape with a 2-pronged corridor at the bottom. Spedic would loop at the top of the L, or if there were Wustlings blocking his way, he hoarded up by starting at the top of the L, then running down to the turn where there weren't any spawns behind him, and then ran the zombies around the full room. He'd usually train in the main area and shoot bombs to blow up hordes. Or when he had to, he used the full map to train and procced Lucky Crit to kill zombies, although the best wall buy in here is the double-barreled shotgun. But this actually makes it a safer process, as each shotgun pellet has the 5% chance to activate Lucky Crit, so your shot actually has a higher chance to kill and less of a chance to create one-armed zombies. Spedic died on 72 after 15 hours from getting ganked by a Wustling and a one-armed zombie combo. The Tortured Path maps, Bodega Cervantes, USS Mount Olympus, and Altar of Blood, don't have any doors, so we'll skip those. The Frozen Dawn is the only current first room record that ends to a reset, at 125 by Spedic. This room is more similar to Shore, where you hoard up the zombies and kill them with bombs, although in here you have a lot more space to work with, so it's not as dangerous as Shore. It becomes pretty strategically simple, with running the length of the room to hoard up, and then shooting the bomb to bomb the zombies. Every round after 100 is just round 100 repeating, so Spedic's game plateaued at this point. He was able to survive 46 hours to this map's reset, giving World War II a great finale. On Black Ops 4, we have split categories again, but split differently this time. This is the only COD Zombies game that has records on different difficulty modes, so I'm going to split them across the 2 most popular modes, Normal and Hardcore. On Normal, you can take 4 hits from a zombie before downing, and the zombie's health will not increase past round 35. On Hardcore, you can only take 3 hits, and the zombie's health will increase indefinitely. This game's version of Gobblegum is called Elixirs, although like Fate and Fortune cards, you hold all of your available elixirs at the start of the game. Unlike Fate and Fortune cards, elixirs just have a time-based recharge rate. There are mega elixirs, many of which are similar to Black Ops 3, but I'm actually going to skip this category entirely, because it's kind of silly and not really strategically interesting to talk about. They're not played much, and when they are, it's usually just using things like power vacuum spam to spawn thousands upon upon thousands of drops, as elixirs like that are not banned for records on this game. Besides that, you can just get all the perks and pack your weapons to kill slightly faster. So to keep this already gargantuan video down for time, we'll stick to the nail-biter records. 9's normal world record is 72 by Scottish player Vixty, with classic elixirs. Classic elixirs on this game aren't as much for safety in first rooms as they are for kill efficiency. So I'll just mention whichever record is higher, with elixirs or without. Common elixirs used, such as the ones in Vixty's game, are Arsenal Accelerator, which charges your specialist weapon faster, Head Scan, which has a chance to insta-kill zombies on headshots when active, Temporal Gift, which makes drops like insta-kills last twice as long, Pop Shocks, which has 5 activations of electrifying and killing full hordes when knifing, and Equipment, which refills your grenade slot. One of the most powerful grenades you can equip to your starting loadout is Wraith Fires, which on normal difficulty will kill on any round. Your grenade slot also recharges over time, meaning you can use at least one Wraith Fire every 60 seconds. Anywhere But Here works in some first rooms, and in co-op, elixirs like Nowhere But Here can be used as a substitute to teleport to a downed teammate. 9 has a wide open area of a first room, with fire traps that try to scorch you but also challenge podiums that have very easy challenges for very good rewards. In solo, you can get an extra revive, but the best reward is a pack-a-punched version of the first wall-buy pistol, the Strife, so you can buy ammo for it. And you'll need it because yes, every zombie type in this map spawns in the first room. Blightfathers, gladiators, brawlers, tigers, which are basically like dogs, and catalyst zombies, which are elemental zombies that have special powers. But there's a lot of room to keep your distance and shoot from afar, or run like a bitch. The best way to deal with these is to use your specialist weapon. Specialists are much better on this game than any other. As you spawn with them, they all do infinite damage, and they have relatively short recharge times. On the Chaos storyline maps, you can equip the Viper and Dragon specialist, which is by far the best as you get a long-range gun and a close-range sword. And the sword can even act as a monkey bomb and distract zombies. This is also helpful as an extra weapon, as one major feature change in Black Ops 4 that affects first rooms a lot is how the points work. In this game, you do not get points for hitting a zombie with a bullet like all previous games. You only get points for the percentage of damage you do to the zombie. This means at 35 plus, you will barely be breaking even on points versus wallgun ammo buys. So having millions of points is usually a thing of the past. But Vixty managed to keep a good economy and a good lifespan, and ended up quitting out on 72. The hardcore versions of most of these first rooms are very similar. They're just harder and more dangerous because of the reduced player health and stronger zombies. Plus, points can be even harder to come by in higher rounds, as you will get fewer and fewer points per bullet. The co-op record is higher at 61 by ZKL Momo and All-Star Gamer. They still got their Pack-a-Punch strifes from the challenges, and Wraith Fires are still critical here, as they function as free damage without having to spend points for ammo. Wraith Fires also notably light the floor on fire and do tick damage the longer the zombies stand on them. So the meta is to run the zombies around in the Wraith Fire for as long as humanly possible, before it disperses after about 15 seconds. The fire trap ceases to be a problem here, because in co-op you can actually utilize a bug to nullify its damage entirely. If you bleed out on the fire trap or inside a gladiator gate, when you respawn and damage yourself once at each flame pillar, you will become immune to the fire. However, this is only doable in co-op because obviously you need someone to progress the round. This allowed players to run freely around the arena and fire off their packed weapons at the horde, along with Wraith Fires whenever they were ready. As you can see, by the end of the game, Momo and All-Star are nearly bankrupt, especially since every Strife ammo buy cost 4,500 points. The game ended when Momo was laying into All-Star's horde with an alternate wall weapon, the Essex shotgun, but got jumped by some hard-hitting zombies, and when All-Star tried to revive him, he died too. The solo hardcore record is a tie at 58 by Zoic and Vixty. Once again, same story, just avoid the fire, rip the strife, struggle to maximize your funds as you start to make less and less. Just like real life. The other brutal part of the Black Ops 4 point system is that in solo, you'll lose half your points when you down, making the economy even harder. But Zoic finally died trying to cut back the zombies and round up the horde, and Vixty died getting hit while walking through the fire. Voyage of Despair's normal world record is 62 by All-Star Gamer. This layout is a bit more complex than 9's, with a raised back deck, a lower middle area with obstacles, and a raised walkway at the front with jumping off points. There's no packed weapons in here, but there is a buyable perk. In Black Ops 4 you can set the perks wherever you want them in your loadout, so this can be any perk you want. And All-Star chose Dying Wish, which prevents you from downing when you get hit too much but has a time to recharge. All-Star circled the room with the Strife and his equipped starting gun, the SOG. He made long LeBron jumps off the staircases and used Wraithfires at the choke points, or on places where the zombies climbed up to bait them into receiving more tick damage. He eventually died when circling at the bottom of a staircase and getting trapped. The hardcore record is close behind at 60 by ZSFR Maxinor. Max just ran faster and more consistent circles around the room, as it was taking longer to kill the zombies at 60 than All-Star's game, and he had to stay ahead of them, as in the 50s they all became super sprinters. You'll still notice the insane time difference Wraithfires make between this and the earlier games like Black Ops 1, seeing as how this game was only about 8 hours long compared to, say, 50 hours for Tester XVI's round 60 on Kino, with Tester also having dog rounds. Max also used Dying Wish like All-Star, but ended up dying on 60 this game, although the clip of the death has been lost. So just imagine him taking it down in the stupidest, most brain-dead way you can imagine. Blood of the Dead's record is actually a tie between the co-op and the solo on normal, 59 by Maxinor and Descaras, and a solo game by Japanese player Mew27. This first room is a bit similar in layout to Origins, with 2 square rooms connected by a staircase. In the co-op, Max would train on the bottom floor, a large rectangle with a table in the middle and 2 spawns at the back, and Descaras would train on the top floor, a larger square room with more obstacles and spawns at opposite corners. Periodically, Descaras would bring down his zombies to Maxinor, they'd merge, and then Descaras would run back upstairs while Max wraithfired the zombies. Another extremely helpful feature on Black Ops 4 is that you can shoot the zombies to stun them like on Black Ops 3, as they cannot do their attack animation while they are being hit by a bullet. And on this game, it's even more effective against them, as they will be stunned for even longer. This means you can play a lot more aggressive, faster, and safer, since you know that it's rare that a rogue zombie will hit you if you see it in time and your aim is good. Also, since this is an Ether storyline map, different specialists are available, and the most useful one for this room is Takio's Samurai Sword, which has a dash attack that makes you temporarily invisible and is devastating in close quarters like this. The sword also has a zombie blood mode that makes zombies completely ignore you for a time. Brutus does spawn in here, but the pair could usually pause their kills to dispatch him, especially if they had the sword available. The pair died when Max mistimed his Wraithfire respawns and ran right into them, and Descaras down trying to get down to his floor. On the solo record by Mew, he would stay on the bottom floor like Maxinor, but he'd have to hoard up all the zombies by himself. He'd place one board on both downstairs windows for some buffer time, and then Wraithfire. To kill the full horde, he'd have to run them several times over the Inferno on the ground, so he had to practice cutting back and tightening the horde a lot, collecting the nearby zombies and then the ones coming down the stairs. His game finally ended when he misjudged his spawns and didn't dash past the downstairs window fast enough. The hardcore record is 52 by All-Star again. All-Star's strategy was very similar to Mew's with a few tweaks. Until the mid-40s, zombies would die to one Wraithfire, although All-Star had to run them over the fire for almost the entire duration it was on the ground. In higher rounds though, and especially after 50 when super sprinters became common, he could only kill partial hordes with one Wraithfire. The good news is that he was never buying ammo, so he racked up tons of points. Plus he used the sword whenever it was available. Unfortunately, he died when Brutus spawned and forced him upstairs into a much tougher horde up, which he could not complete. Classified's highest first room round is a tie at 55 by Black Ops 4 GOAT IMZ123 and Raids FPS. This room is the exact same layout as 5's first room, but of course the game mechanics here are much different. For one thing, you can see just how helpful shooting to stun is in some of these clips. But the zombies aren't the only threat. If you looked at 5 at the beginning of this video and said, This needs more boss zombies. This is the map for you. After 25, both dogs and Nova crawlers will spawn with zombies on this map, and they will just disrespect you by spawning in the middle of the room. You also cannot set windows on this map, unlike 5. The zombies will just spawn out of all 6 windows. These players would run the perimeter of the room, shooting to stun any ambitious zombies, and wraith firing the horde at choke points whenever they had them all. It's also worth noting that this is the only record in the entire BO4 section that used no elixirs. And fun fact, these games were actually played for the 3rd Zombies World Championship in spring 2021. Raids actually achieved 55 3 times, and ended up winning the challenge by a tiebreaker of kill count, but he could never make it past the super sprinting zombies. They always cut him off too quick. IMZ failed to break the tie when he slowed down to shoot a dog in a doorway on 55, and the zombies caught up to him too quick. The hardcore version of this is way behind at 41 by Maxinor. The advantage was that Max was killing much slower with his wraith fires due to zombie health, so he didn't have to manage a full horde of respawners every time. The downside was that he could only take 3 hits, so the horde ups he did have to do were a lot more dangerous. He ended up dying right after using his sword and trying to hoard up the respawners, but they spilled in too fast. Dead of the Night has the honor of being the smallest first room in existence. Seriously, all you have is this tiny L-shaped room that's not even really big enough for training. Therefore, this map is unique in that the 3-player record is the highest round, at 56 by French team Maxinor, Rasmo, and Descaras. Yeah, the French have all the records on this map again. There are actually 2 first rooms on this map, similar to Verrucht or Carrier, but there's not actually a split category for this map because they're so similar and one of them is basically unplayable. You definitely want to be on Strife's side for the better weapon and more room, but the game will always spawn at least 1 player apart in co-op. There are 2 ways around this. You can either have that player down and bleed out, or you can use the elixir that allows you to teleport to a down teammate. They did the latter. There's only 2 windows in here, so you can put a player on each and keep holding them with boards and wraith firing. So what is the 3rd player doing? Oh, he's keeping you safe from the vampires. These will start spawning on round 13 from a separate spawn and are basically faster zombies with inconsistent health, so it's hard to tell how long they'll take to die. They also have a lunge attack and love to use it. If that wasn't bad enough, werewolves start spawning on 31. These are your classic big bad boss zombie, but they die quickly to Viper and Dragon. But if that wasn't bad enough, red vampires, or Nosferatu, start spawning on 36. Which have more health and can bring you within 1 hit of death in 1 swing. These are what make this room hard more than anything. Not to mention this map has catalyst zombies as well. There is no horde up strategy here because you can't horde up. It's a game of hold the windows and if they breach, use everything you can to regain control, making this one of the most hectic and intense first rooms. The game ended when the vampire player got rushed, Maxinor breached his window, and the last player got trapped in the corner, sending them to their graves. The solo record is still surprisingly high at 41 by Maxinor. How did he manage to pull this off in solo? Good timing, great resource management, and a little luck. Max would stand at this window and let the zombies from the opposite window come in, and wraithfire to kill as many of them as possible. Then he'd run to the very back, whip out Viper and Dragon, and use it on the full horde, ending it off with the distraction technique. This will actually start to charge it back up. He'd only use about half of its charge, so he would be able to charge it back up again with this and the next wraithfire. This works surprisingly consistently, in tandem with helpful drops like insta-kills, max ammos, and full powers to recharge the specialist. You actually want to avoid nukes most of the time because they won't charge your specialist and they tweak the respawning zombies' pathing, making your job much harder. Max sadly died when he was trying to maximize his kills in some wraithfires and failed his slide. On hardcore, the highest is 42 with 4 players by the ZKL squad. Here, 2 players would just have to hold the windows for longer and use more wraithfires or Viper and Dragons to dispose of zombies, and 2 players could hold the vampire spawn at the end of of the room. The game ended when All-Star had a breach that killed them all. And in solo, the hardcore record is only 33 by Maxinor. This is kind of funny because he didn't even reach the point where the health is higher than the normal 35 health cap. It's just so much harder in these close quarters when you can't tank that extra third hit. He died trying to recover from a down when a vampire lunged at him. Ancient Evil's first room record is 60 by, oh my god, he's back, Sovetski Bober. This room is actually quite small despite the fact that it consists of a whole temple and is the main strategy area on Ancient Evil High Round. However, of course, all you have to work with is the Strife, along with Wraithfires and the Viper and Dragon. The Horde up here is easier than you might think, where you just start outside the front of the temple, run around the side, stall the zombies outside their spawn, and then again inside the temple, and you pretty much have them all. Bober enacted a very simple strategy for victory, running clockwise through the temple and surrounding area and smacking Wraithfires at the temple's left exit. This first room is so close quarters that you can actually kill a lot of respawners with each Wraithfire burn. Like the other BO4 first rooms, bosses love you in here, but also like the others, you can turn them into confetti with the specialist. Unfortunately, on the Horde up of round 60, a lot more zombies spawned out of the initial spawn than Bober was expecting, and made him ancient history. The hardcore version's record is a tie at 54 between IMZ123 and Bober himself. Mirroring classified hardcore, this strategy is just to use Wraithfires much slower and safer, and do several loops before repeating to watch for respawners, keeping your guns out only for stunning zombies or chipping away at the Horde health. IMZ would end up dying to an exploding fire catalyst zombie, and Bober, wait a second, no way Bober gets trapped in the same place twice, right? Right, Bober? Oh. Alpha Omega's record throws back to All-Star with another 60. This room might be the simplest of any Black Ops 4 first room, as there's no bells and whistles, no special weapons, perks, or bosses, just a circle and a whole lot of zombies. And a whole lot of Wraithfires. This is also where stun shooting becomes the most evident and necessary, as there's really no fancy techniques or horde up strategy to make you safer. You just have to dodge everything coming at you. However, like the other Ether maps, you do have the Samurai Sword for safety. All-Star died this game when he missed the stun on a zombie and then got hit from behind. He also holds the hardcore record at 57, which sports an almost identical strategy. The only difference was that All-Star would throw his Wraithfires on the more open side of the room instead of the choke point, as there he could run the zombies around in the fire for maximum tick damage. Also, he'd consistently shoot with the Strife while his Wraiths recharged to get that extra chip damage. This game he actually ended up quitting by opening the door. Really, All-Star? You couldn't have made this one hardcore record that's higher than a normal record? And finally, we have Tag der Toten, which has a record of a whopping 179 by the man, the myth, the legend, Sovetski Bober. Why is this record such a ridiculous amount higher than any other Black Ops 4 first room? First of all, it's the easiest, since you have a wide open circle of docks and walkways, and the zombies almost always need to climb up to get to you. There's also no boss or special zombies in this room besides dogs, which are actually nice to have because they're easily killable. Bober would just do a couple loops around the room and then Wraithfire while all the zombies climbed up at the choke point, and repeat since Wraithfires always kill on normal. The game lasted 90 hours and actually ended when Bober's PS4 froze, although it's still not the longest first room game ever. And even if that game makes sense as to why it lasted so long now, you may still be surprised by how high the hardcore record is. 137, also by Bober. How did Bober manage to pass rounds even when the zombies had millions of health? This map has weaponized snowballs, which can be picked up for free infinitely from certain spots on the map, several of them being in the first room. They do infinite damage on headshots and 3-shot on a body shot, but they only kill one zombie at a time, so it's extremely slow, but possible. At the very least, you can mix in elixirs like pop shocks to kill a bit faster at times. It took Bober almost the same amount of time to reach 137 on hardcore as it did to reach 179 on normal. 89.5 hours this time, to show you the sheer time difference. On this game, he ended up dying when he missed the jump to the killing dock. With the next game, Cold War, we finally move into the modern era of zombies. Starting with this game, Treyarch changed how round progression works, with zombie health capping at 55 and round length tapering off at 51, where rounds will only get a couple zombies longer every time. As such, you'll see a lot higher rounds here, and the best example is the launch map, D Machine. The other main difference with this game is that zombies will drop loot, much more diverse loot than power-ups like insta-kills or max ammos. These include things like grenades, throwing axes, stim shots, etc. But most importantly, salvage. Salvage is a currency used to buy lethal grenades, tactical grenades, support score streaks, and self-revives from the crafting tables around the Cold War maps, including in every first room. This gives you a lot of weapons that kill past the damage cap, making these records very high. In fact, in the D Machine first room, 6 different people have reached Cold War's maximum round of 935. Yes, this was hard-coded into the game by Treyarch as a Group 935 Easter egg. The first was Pikachu in August of 2021. Part of the reason for this was that when the game was new, it was so unstable that it was believed you could only reach the max round if you didn't open the full map. Otherwise, everyone seemed to crash. This was the basis on which Pika played his game, where he decided to run full hordes on the tree line side of the map, then shoot each with the War Machine score streak, collecting his loot after every loop. When his War Machine ran out of ammo, he'd simply buy a new one with the salvage he'd collected. You'll notice that this first room is very wide open, but that's partially balanced out by the presence of super sprinters, and how hard the zombies hit you without any perks. Plus, the amount of zombies that can spawn on the map at a time has been raised on this game to 32, from 24 on previous games. Another feature in this game is armor, which reduces damage to your health. Normally, you can buy more armor from the armor station when the zombies chip away at it, but there are no armor stations in most of the first rooms, so Pika had to wait for the zombies to randomly drop armor to get more. He used the Ether Shroud Specialist for safety, which makes you invisible to the zombies for a few seconds, like Idolize on Black Ops 3 Mega Gum records, or the Samurai Sword on Black Ops 4. Even if he downed, he could just buy another self-revive. Still, the game was no cakewalk, because maxing out the round in the first room was a long journey. Pika took over 174 hours of gameplay to reach round 935. But this still isn't the longest first room game of zombies ever. Toward the end of the game, it was so laggy and unstable that Pika had to stand still by the workbench and spam the War Machine, or risk dying and freezing the game by moving around too much. But that was fine because he had tons of salvage saved up. On the last round, he opened up the first door to discover the rest of the map, although when walking through the map, he was freezing every 5 seconds, which ended his exploration pretty fast.
Jesus, take the wheel!
The next year, in 2022, 4 more players, Trickshots, Beta Pack-a-Punch, Tropical Kush, and Uking NL also all achieved round 935 in the first room. Trix played the same War Machine training strat until the 700s, but after that pioneered another strategy using another score streak, the RC car, right next to the crafting table for when the game was barely playable anymore. Everyone after him used this, with Tropical Kush whittling the time all the way down to 128 hours. In 2023, a player named Persevere reached round 935 in the first room without using any armor either, meaning that one hit from the zombies in triple digits would red screen him. Because of this, he switched to playing with the RC car early, in the 300s. In 2025, another player named Nas Fury also reached 935. He was the most recent one to complete this challenge. Now, I'm going to split categories again for Cold War here, because I also want to go over the no support record as well. That's the juicier one. In this rule set, you can buy lethal and tactical grenades from the crafting table, but you can't buy any score streaks or self-revives. Armor can drop from zombies, but it's rare and completely random, so you can't rely on it. You're also not allowed to pick up self-revives from zombies on this rule set, so you can only use the single one you spawned with and take one single down. Thus, the no support first room record on D Machine is 275 by Drain BB. Drain used the same training route as the support players did with the War Machine. However, he would just use Semtex grenades to kill the zombies. Yes, Semtex kill past the round 55 health cap on this game. Whenever he got a good loot drop from the zombies, like C4 or Molotovs, he'd use that too, as he wanted to be conscious of not wasting his salvage economy. Here, I'll also talk about the boss zombie, the Megaton, since you can't just spam War Machines or chopper gunners into his face on this challenge. The Megaton is a bulky toxic zombie with a charge attack, and when you get his health low enough, he actually splits into 2 separate halves that attack you. For this reason, Drain had to develop a special way to deal with him to manage him more easily. easily. When the Megaton arrived every few rounds, Drain would use his Tesla Storm field upgrade to damage him all the way down until right before he was low enough to split, then charge it up again off a zombie horde and repeat quickly to deal with the two halves. Drain was so locked in that he didn't even break his armor plate a single time, and he played 18 hours until he decided to quit on 275. Firebase Z's first room record with support is 476 by Tony V. This first room contains an entire town square, including the outside and inside of buildings, but Tony didn't have to use much of that. Instead, he'd buy the Death Machine score streak from the crafting table and run to the upstairs balcony in the adjacent building to camp and use them. This first room will throw dogs, manglers, and a new boss called Mimics at you, who pose as loot, but Tony had no problem disintegrating all of them with lead. When he needed a new Death Machine, he'd just use Ether Shroud with an augment that teleports you a short distance to zip to the table and buy a new one. Then he'd use Gersh devices to get back up top. You can also buy Quick Revive in this first room. It doesn't actually revive you unless you have it upgraded to tier 5 and get a kill while down, but you have self revives to revive you on this game, and Quick Revive does make your health regen much faster. This game lasted over 40 hours before Tony finally ended up freezing on 476 while using a Gersh device. Without support, the record is only 90 by Tropical Kush. He had to be much more careful, especially with manglers and mimics kicking his ass. He utilized almost the entire first room, running a long loop through the street and up to the rooftops, and using Semtex and anything else that dropped to kill, although it was almost impossible to get horde ups as clean as D machines. He also used Ether Shroud for safety and to rebuy grenades. His game ended to a disconnection while paused. Maurer Toten's support record is a 265 game crash by, it's Drain BB. This is by far the hardest first room on Cold War. This first room consists of 2 floors. The lower is a series of rooms, not much bigger than Verrucht Jugside, but with the faster and heavy hitting zombies, it's way too small to train in or even access mid-round. The bad news is the crafting table is down here. You can access the floor above via a caved-in corner of the rooftop, and the rest of the rooftop itself, but it's dotted with obstacles. There are a range of boss zombies that spawn in here. Manglers, which can knock down zombies with their cannon, Disciples, which increase the zombies' health and drain your health and armor constantly if you're in their range, and the most fun, Panzers with long-range flamethrowers. These can all spawn in combination with the zombies and each other. With support, Drain could just pop Ether Shroud and melee the Panzer to death with the combat bow, plus buy self-revives or nades whenever he needed. That's why no support is the real challenge. In fact, no support Maurer First Room is considered by some to be the hardest world record on all of Cold War, not just in first rooms, in any category. The record is 65 by Drain BB. Here, since you can't use the combat bow against the Panzer as it counts as support, you have to use the Ring of Fire field upgrade, which powers up your shots, and both a C4 and a Semtex against him. But this means you have to swap out the safety of Ether Shroud for this field upgrade. So not only can you not buy self-revives anyway, you can't even buy grenades mid-round if there are any special enemies, and you have to just use what you get on the ground. It's very tough to conserve salvage here anyway, and one small mistake can cost you the game. Drain used a back and forth cutback horde up strat around the perimeter of the entire rooftop, which he had down to a science. By the time he completed his route, the zombies were in the center of the roof, and he could toss nades at them and then collect his salvage and Semtexes or C4s to kill the next horde. The game ended when he got railed from behind while trying to complete this at the beginning of 65. And then we're on to Forsaken, which has an entire parking lot as its first room, although to be fair, there are a lot of obstacles. The record here is the max round of 935 by 2 players. First by Insomnia Virus in January of 2022, and then less than a month later by Trix as well. Similar to D Machine, this map's meta also used to be to play the high round in the first room, as the map would always crash when you tried to play high rounds after opening everything up. For much of this game, Insomnia camped in the corners of the room with the Death Machine. He threw decoy grenades and whatever else dropped from the zombies, and used Ether Shroud to get out and get a new one each time. The only perk you can get in here is Death Perception, which allows you to see zombies through walls, which is a little helpful for safety, and it also gives you 20% more salvage, which is very helpful for economy. What's even more helpful is the fact that there's an armor station in this first room, allowing you to buy up to tier 3 armor and rebuy more whenever you want. Toward the end of the 152-hour game, Insomnia changed his strategy to getting spammier and spammier with the war machine at the climbable obstacles nearest the workbench. Insomnia's game was just barely hanging on by the end, teetering on the edge of crashing, as constant killing for a long time like he was doing with the death machine destabilizes this game. As soon as he left this area and teleported to the rest of the map, his game crashed almost instantly.
Oh, we crashed! We freaking crashed! Now, this is the official crash, guys. That's it. Yeah, like I said, guys, it's too hard to turn on the power, right?
Trix was running this map like a machine at the same time. Coming off a round 800 game where his controller broke, he ordered a new one off Amazon, and as soon as it came, he got a power outage. This was his redemption game. He used a war machine strategy for his entire game, running wide circles around the entire area and blasting each horde. The strategy was a bit slower but more stable for the game overall. He also had one window get stuck in the 500s from a Tormentor special zombie dying in front of it, and that slowed his game down a lot too. He took 183.5 hours to reach round 935, making this the official longest first room game of all time. The no support record on Forsaken is only 246 by Slang Kush 420, a stoner not to be confused with Tropical Kush. His strategy was more similar to trick shots, as he ran long steady loops around the first room, using up all the room to dodge zombies as they came, and using things like C4, Semtex, or his Frost Blast field upgrade to bust the horde. He was also able to upgrade to 3 armor plates and rebuy whenever he wanted, but his game eventually ended to him missing a climb up on top of a truck and the zombies dragging him down. You probably think, surely no one plays first rooms on Vanguard, right? Wrong. 2 people do. The first 2 maps, Duranfang and Terra Maledicta, don't have records because you're forced to progress to a different room each round. However, the last 2 do. The record on Shino Numa Reborn is a tie, 35 by Sunli and ZSFR Maxinor, making Maxinor the MVP for having first room records on the most games, and the most records in this video. This game still plays pretty differently than any before it. First of all, you can start with any gun, and you can buy ammo for it from the ammo crate in the first room. Both Sunli and Maxinor went with shotguns that would devastate at close range. Super sprinting zombies make a return in this game starting on 35, and zombie hits do increase damage as rounds scale, so by round 31 you're a 1-hit down without armor or Juggernog, and even with armor you're a 2-hit down. You do have an activatable ability that makes you temporarily invisible for safety. Like Cold War, zombies drop loot, like decoy grenades or monkey bombs, which are useful in the first room. Special enemies include Zabala, who makes explosions that are easily avoidable but throw zombies to the ground, and Sturmkrieger, who shoot you with miniguns and also throw zombies to the ground, inadvertently causing more problems for you. Killing these, however, can net you very helpful items like pack-a-punched weapons, death machines, war machines, or even self-revives. The other zombie type is explosive zombies, but these are helpful as they can be used to kill the horde. Wall weapons are also handy because they become pack-a-punch by themselves off the wall as the round increases. Sunli and Maxinor ran vaguely the same route around the room as all previous Shinos, shooting with their shotguns as they went. They could detonate the explosive zombies to kill the horde if they were in a good spot. Tragically, the super sprinters on 35 were far too much for either Sunli or Maxinor to handle in close quarters, and they both died to that. The Archon has a record of 40. Once again, a tie between Sunli and Maxinor. This is basically the exact same story as Shino Reborn, but you have a bit bigger of an area to accommodate the zombies and bosses. Here you can run cutbacks to horde up and put distance between you and the super sprinters. This time, Sunli and Maxinor both ate it to bad respawners. Phew, at least the Vanguard section wasn't too long, right? Now we're on to our penultimate game, Black Ops 6. I'm only going to be looking at the categories without gobblegums here, as once again, Gums kind of turned this into spamming support drops and insta-kills, especially since there's no gum machine price increase and the round progression works about the same as Cold War. However, I will include the support categories as most maps don't have crafting tables in the first room, and the only way to get support score streaks is for zombies to drop them as loot, which is fairly rare. Terminus is the only map where the record is higher in co-op, at 100 by 4 people who love numbers after their names: Ross, Sean, Cindy Lou, and Bradley. This is actually one of the more interesting first rooms on modern zombies, mostly because of its unique shape and how tight it is. There are 4 different rooms, a small triangular room at the top, 2 rectangular rooms, and a courtyard that's perfect for cutbacks. However, with the max amount of players, this team could work in sync with a very unique strategy. The zombie count on this game in co-op is not much more than solo, only around 25% more zombies per player, so they could synergize to do a strategy that's an incredible amount faster than solo. They would camp by the ammo crate in the courtyard, and take turns popping the Ether Shroud field upgrade, each equipped with an augment called Group Shroud, which expands Ether Shroud to everyone around you. That way, they could all be shrouded at the same time, and the players who didn't just pop Shroud could recharge their shrouds while shrouded. Shroud-tastic. And if even one person has the extension upgrade for Shroud, it will propagate to all players, giving even more of an advantage. While shrouded, the zombies have no target, so they will all just run back into the building. With the ammo crate, the team could just keep rebuying ammo, and even animation canceled the reload animation. They used an attachment on their guns called the Drill Charge, which when fired at a wall, burrows through and causes an explosion on the other side, laying waste to the zombies. Not only that, its damage scales with the rounds, and since the zombie health and rounds already don't scale much past round 50, they made it to 100 in 4 hours. However, there were many times where this room devolved into pure chaos, when teammates went down or they had to balance dealing with manglers, bugs, spiders, or amalgams, tanky and fast boss zombies. The chaos finally caught up with them on 100, and they died. The solo record on Terminus is much lower at 45 by Apospo. Since you obviously can't use the group shroud technique, it's totally different and a lot more training centered. Apos would start in the room adjacent to courtyard to spawn most of the zombies inside, then run out and do cutbacks until they were all hoarded up. However, the max limit of zombies on the map at a time was raised again on Black Ops 6 to 40, so these hordes get fat. Add on to that the fact that you're constantly dodging zombies getting knocked down from mangler shots, things get chaotic fast. Apos would kill mainly with throwing axes, which pierce through multiple zombies and have the highest damage output of any normal weapon, while training inside. You can also just pick them back up after they land on the ground, so you essentially have infinite. Alternatively, he'd use whatever score streaks dropped on the ground, such as RC cars or mangler injections, to deal with the horde. These options also work well on both the manglers and the amalgam. Unfortunately, he ran out of options on 45 and died while trying to get a horde up in the courtyard. Liberty Falls has a first room record of 212 by Devious. This first room is very open, consisting of the whole parking lot, side street, and gas station. Its big advantage is the buyable trap in it, the electric trap which you can lead zombies to walk over. However, Devious also had to deal with manglers taking potshots at him and knocking down the zombies, but he positioned himself behind obstacles like cars and buildings in the room to skillfully block their shots. Liberty also has a vending machine in the first room that, when meleeed once per round, can dispatch almost any loot drop, including perks, which is how Devious managed to get Juggernog and several other perks throughout the game. This game was also played early in Black Ops 6's life cycle, only about a month after the game came out, so a lot of features in the game now had not been added yet, and a lot of things had not been patched, such as the painstakingly long spider rounds, which were pure nightmare fuel seeing an army of spiders marching towards you with only a pellet gun to defend yourself. Devious's game would end after about 23 hours to... wait, what did he even die to? An act of God? Your guess is as good as mine. Citadel des Morts is a special case, and it has the highest numerical first room record of any map ever, 999, by two different players, vFish and Jen. These two achieved this within a week of each other in September 2025. Why is this record so much higher than any other? Well, not only is there a Wunder machine in here that you can buy every perk from, it's also because Citadel is the only map with a crafting table in the first room, so Fish and Jen were able to just buy all the score streaks they wanted. Mostly they went to the basement area and used Mangler injection score streaks, which turns you into a Mangler for 45 seconds and lets you demolish the zombies. Both reached 999 around the 87-hour mark, and since that's the max round on this game, they quit out after with nothing left to do. For comparison, the no support record on Citadel is 154 by Ghost Leader, who ran around the main fountain area using drill charges, throwing axes, and PhD to kill large hordes and respawners. The Tombs record is 96 by Apospo. This room is a double-tiered dig site with a large walkway around a circular central area. Apos looped around this walkway over and over, staying ahead of the horde and planting what drill charges he could on each loop, then rebuying more from the ammo crate. The crazy thing about this game is, this room actually has a PhD flopper perk machine, which is very helpful for sliding past and falling on top of the zombies to blow them up. But Apos didn't even use this because he was doing a purist challenge for a community bounty of $300, where you basically can't use anything except your starting loadout. And he still rose above all the other boards in this first room, destroying the challenge. He eventually died on 96 when he was forced off the walkway and jumped into a zombie's open arms. The record on Shattered Veil's first room is 86 by Ross88Bic. This room is one of the more complicated layouts with a winding two-tiered courtyard and a bridge, but there's also an electric floor trap similar to Liberty Falls in here. Ross used this to start rounds and then drill charges to finish them off, running a specific circle around the bridge and firing his charges into specific places, so they burrow through walls and blast the hordes behind him. Luckily, there was an ammo crate right on his route that he could buy from. The game only lasted 3 hours, as he eventually got cornered off his route by a variety of enemy types and had his own veil shattered. And finally, Reckoning's first room is 62 by Ghost Leader. This is another wide open circular indoor area that basically screams, "Use drill charges in me," so Ghost Leader obliged. The quick revive machine is also in here, giving you that faster regen needed to play closer to the zombies and take more hits. The Uberklaus boss will spawn in here, but Ghost would just use Ether Shroud and melee him to death through both his phases. He eventually died by cutting it too close in one of his loops around the room, trying to jump over a spider. Unfortunately, the spider grabbed him by the ankles and pulled him down to his death, a rough way for anyone to go out. And finally, we come to the last batch of first rooms. Black Ops 7. They really gave up on naming these games, didn't they? Things aren't too different from Black Ops 6 here, with similar round and zombie health progression, movement, and first room size, although drill charges are gone, as they're massively nerfed. I'll also be skipping the Gobblegum categories here for the same reason, but most of them aren't higher anyway. For the launch map, Ashes of the Damned, the first room record is 241 by Ghost Leader. This room is a very large street, as you can see, so Ghost was able to easily hoard up and use throwing axes to collat small groups of zombies, kind of like Terminus, but easier. He was able to use the Toxic Growth Field upgrade on plants to get pack-a-punched weapons, and the Wunder machine to get all the perks. This game lasted 16 hours, and might be one of the most tragic endings in this entire video. Ghost tabbed out to open another program because he thought the round was changing, and it turned out there was one extra zombie left, which immediately pulled up and killed him. It's worth noting that zombie hits scale up through rounds on this game, and at 200 plus they can 2-hit down you at almost any time, even with Juggernog. Van Dorn Farm's world record is also by Ghost Leader at 144. This room is similar, a wide open space with obstacles dotted throughout, so the strategy is similar too, although Ghost managed to get better weapons this time from the TED trials, timed rotating challenges, those being a rocket launcher and a ray gun Mark II. On the survival maps, TED trials will just spawn in the first room without the need to turn on the power. With the rocket launcher and PhD, Ghost was able to often use the sliding exploit into a wall accentuated with explosions, which is almost like an invincibility technique as long as you have the ammo. Once again, he got all the perks and was not only going for 999 rounds, he was also apparently going for 999 melee macchiatos, because what is this? In fact, this perk duplication bug triggered the end of his game, because when he saved and quit and reloaded the game couldn't handle it and he spawned back in with no perks, and died almost immediately without protection. Astra Malorum has a first room record of only 58 by Swedish player out of 1. This is because it's a regular map and no TED trials will spawn in the first room, nor are there any pods like Ashes of the Damned, so all you have to use is throwing axes and your wits. One would run circles around the lowest area of the spawn room, which is really the only area with maneuverability, and hurl his axes over and over through the horde, killing a few with each pass and dodging respawners with slides and carefully timed stim shots to keep his health up. But this only worked for about 2.5 hours before he lost his self-revive and ate it. Exit 115 goes back to Ghost Leader with a record of 129. Similar to the OG farm or town, this first room covers most of the map, with the only inaccessible area being inside the diner and gas station. Ghost was able to utilize TED trials again and axe the day away, playing 6 hours until bad zombie pathing finally caught up with him in his circle. And finally, Zarya Cosmodrome has a record of 611 by Ghost Leader closing us out. There's a mystery box in the first room here, plus TED trials, and a Wunder Fizz, and a great camping spot directly next to an ammo crate. This allowed Ghost to just sit and spam the rocket launcher or PhD for most of the game. He also surrounded himself with the toxic growth field upgrade plants to protect himself. His game ended on 611 when he loaded back in and found that Treyarch had patched his toxic growth method, losing him the protection and causing him to die pretty fast. And that concludes our coverage of all 82 first rooms in Zombies. Rooms that can accommodate anywhere from 24 to 999 rounds for the best players. So if you're like me, the last remaining question is, why? Why would anyone do this? Why would anyone willingly choose to limit themselves and stay in a room with nothing in it for hours and hours, even when it's taking an eternity to kill a single zombie? Is it the stubbornness of the challenge, a drive to show off their skill? Maybe a bit. A joy for a return to complete simplicity in Zombies? Could be. Or is it applying the very simple mechanics of Zombies to any layout the game may throw at you, and figuring out how to play unbelievable games in rooms that were designed to be impossible? Like I said at the beginning, one of my favorite aspects of Zombies is seeing everyone's different approach to the game, even when reduced down to its base elements, giving you a whole new perspective on the game. So, if nothing else, I hope this video inspires you to look up now around the room you're in, and start thinking about how you'd train zombies in it. I'm Wonderful, and this has been the first room record on every map in 2026. Thanks for watching.